Oh, well, good evening, friends. I guess it's a good thing your girl here is her own boss and makes her own hours, huh? So, yes, was I going to work tonight? Was I going to work tonight, Twiz? Yes, Twiz. I was going to go to work, but because your girl is her own boss and makes her own hours, once I saw that the transcript for the sealed IGG hearing dropped, I said, oh shit, well, maybe I'll just take the night off. How about that? It's a Friday night. Hope everybody's ready. It's going to be funsies. I was already reading through some of it, and oh boy, oh boy. Steve W., thank you for being here. Twiz, hopefully you're still here. Who else am I missing? Sorry if I'm missing anybody. I'm getting a chat. I am me. How you doing? Hopefully you're still here. Dog, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Meanie, hi, how are you? Who else is here? We are live. Yes. Yes, plural, Angel. You saw that? Audrey, darling, how are you? Thank you for being here. Yeah, Twiz, right? The real MVP. That's right. I guess it's a good thing that I'm my own boss and make my own hours, right? If I don't want to go to work, I technically don't have to. So, for fuck's sake, Fitziana. Hello, darling. Do I have a cape on? Yes, I do. I have my cape on. You know it, Twiz. I got my cape on. My broom is ready. Come, we fly. Tom Campbell, how you doing? Yeah, sick day for Miss Potts, right? Yeah. It is. It is, Anna D. It's nice, I will say. Leah, how you doing? Thank you so much for being here. Lisa and Cannoli, hi. How are you? We got a lot to get to, friends. Michelle, hi. How you doing? Appreciate you being here. Yeah. Yeah, every time I have a soda water, I get the hiccups. I wore my protective shower curtain. Yes, you're right. I'm sure a lot of you have already been skimming through this transcript too, but holy shit, right? Right out the gate. I didn't even notice it at first because when I was first looking at it, it had come through on my phone and really couldn't see the words. I'm trying to zoom in and stuff. And 12, how you doing? Claire Bear, how are you? So I couldn't really see it at first. And then Lana messaged me. She's like, well, I already see a problem on page 1. And she sent me this screenshot. And I'm like, well, all I saw was the word redacted in bold. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's redacted. I mean, we knew it was going to be redacted. And she was like, girl, she's like, read it. It says defendants plural. And I was like, holy shit. I didn't even notice that. So she pointed it out to me. All I did was highlight it in the doc and used it as my picture for the live, whatever they call it. Willie, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Need some Z's? Yes. Very interested to get into this. Well, it's a Friday night. Let's do this, right? Give me a second. I'll share screen. Hopefully everybody's having an awesome Friday so far. As you can see, it's 175 pages. I got to about page 18. Up. The first few pages, though, we don't really... Well, the first page you want to look at. Show you guys that. See what it says defendants, plural. Lana noticed that. I didn't even notice it. So props to Lana and her eagle eye, because me trying to see that on my phone screen in my car with my blind ass over it. So yes, as you can see here, it does say Brian C. Koberger with a comma and then what appears to be a redacted name. And then it says defendants. But that's purely my speculation, my opinion, no facts here. I don't know shit. Kai Bo, how are you? Thank you for being here. Um, as much as I would like to say this is a typo because there's a comma after Koberger's name, it appears that whatever name came after that is redacted and it's plural. Could be a typo, yes. Could be a typo, yes. But I'm of the opinion it might not be simply because there is a comma. So that's just my opinion, and just my speculation. Okay. I don't want anybody going, but, Miss Potts said, nope, I didn't say shit. This is their document, and this was transcribed by Hitler's clerk. Okay. So I guess, either Hitler's clerk made a grave error here, or it's not an error at all. I believe those would be our only two options. So, do with that information what you will. Come to your own conclusions. No facts here. Let me get over to my chat. Kaibo, did I say hi to you? Yes, I did. How are you? What do you think, Twiz? What do you think about this? Anna D, how you doing? Thank you. Yeah, what do you guys think, right? Could be a comma because there's after the state of Idaho too. Could be. Yeah, you're right, Meanie. Yeah. I agree. It's definitely one hell of a typo, in my opinion. But, could be nothing, could be nothing. I just thought it was very interesting. I'm glad she pointed it out to me. And, it is what it is. Do with it what you will, right? I'm going to go into another screen. Yeah, it's printed the same way with the state of Idaho. Yeah, I know. I'm sure it means nothing. I just thought it was very interesting. That's all. Anything is possible in Idaho, right, Tom? That's what I was thinking too, Twiz, right? And it does say this is a redacted transcript. So, I don't know. We'll see, right? Pretty sure it's just a typo, Fitzy. Okay. All right. Tonka, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Amethyst, how are you? Thanks for being here. Oh, you losing battery fast? I'm sorry, honey. All right. I'm going to get over here and start reading this. Mods, take care of chat. Anything gets wild, handle it. Transcript of redacted proceedings before the Honorable Stephen Hippler, January 23rd, 2025. Certified transcript. It's 175 pages. This is just the index here letting us know who testified. We got testimony from defense witness Brett Payne, defense witness Riley Nolan, defense witness Matthew Gamet, defense witness Daniel Helwig, and defense witness Leah Larkin. Let's see, closed proceedings. Present in the courtroom today are the defendant with counsel, yes. For the state, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Nine, Miss Jennings. There is also a number of people in the courtroom. Are they all part of counsel team or witnesses that day? Miss Taylor says both, Your Honor. Okay. So there's apparently a number of people in the courtroom. They're going to be called. Side of the two categories is that everybody. Miss Taylor says everybody's here. Everybody who is here is a consultant or witness. I'm not quite sure who's on the prosecutor's side. Mr. Thompson, Miss Allen is from the Attorney General's office, and Miss Workman is our victim's witness coordinator. The court, all right, before we get going this morning, I understand this first portion of today's hearing will be to put on evidence related to the IGG suppression and Frank's issue. In terms of witnesses, what are we doing in terms of excluding and or exceptions to exclude based on experts? Miss Taylor responds, Your Honor, the parties have stipulated that the witnesses may be inside the courtroom for the entirety of the proceeding. The state has their witnesses. That's a remote witness, and that's fine for the person to listen in. Judge Hippler asks, is that person appearing remotely? Mr. Nye says yes. The court asks, do we have them up? Clerk says they're not connected. And then the judge says they're not connected. Did you give them a link? Did you ask for a link? And Mr. Nye says, yeah, they let us know they received the link, but we're okay getting started, Your Honor. He doesn't need to be here. All right. Hippler says, I was told by my law clerk that defense intends to refer to exhibits that they don't have here today for the court. Ms. Taylor notifies the judge there was a stipulation that all of the exhibits that were attached to the IGG motion and the Franks motion would be admitted. She was happy to give the court her copies. He says, I've got a copy in the file. The only problem is trying to find what you're talking about quickly if you're referring to a distinct item within that. Typically, I'm provided copies of the specific exhibits witnesses go over. I'll do my best, but... And Ms. Taylor says, I'm happy to provide the court with my copy or use the Elmo so the court can see the display. And the court says, all right, we'll do what we can. In the future, if you know what exhibits you're going to be talking about in particular, you should have 2 copies available for the court. Ms. Taylor says she will from now on. Great. First witness to be called. Let's get down here. He makes sure they're not live. And Detective Payne is the first witness called. He's sworn in, and here we go. Everybody ready? She asks him the basics. What do you do for a living? He's the detective corporal. How long have you been at MPD? Almost 7 years. Prior to MPD, did you have law enforcement experience? Yes, I did. What was that? In the military police corps, the U.S. Army for 3 years prior to coming to Moscow. Are you post-certified? Yes, I am. In the course of your responsibilities with the Moscow police, were you handling an investigation involving homicides at 1122 King Road? Yes, ma'am. What was your role? I was assigned lead detective after about the first 24 hours in that case. That's when Tyson Barrett was taken off. Within the first 24 hours, he was assigned lead detective. That's when Barrett was removed, right? Let me come back to chat here real quick. Hi, everybody. If you're just joining, hello. Joey, how are you? Gina, how you doing? Thanks for being here, everyone. Sorry, I'm just getting back over to chat now. Joey, how you doing? Appreciate you being here. Gina, same. Thanks for being here. Who am I missing? Yeah, Elmo is like Hector the Projector. Exactly, Claire Bear. Bingo. Bingo. All right, if I'm missing anybody, so sorry. So, in the first 24 hours, about the first 24 hours is when he was assigned. Dynamite, how you doing? And that is right around when Tyson Barrett is being taken off the case, correct? Hopefully, and some of my mods are still in here. Willie, do you remember Tyson Barrett? Is that when he was removed within the first 24 hours? For fuck's sake, Fitziana, Twiz, you're still here. Detective Mowry, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. All right, well, somebody let me know. Typically Unique, how you doing? Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. All right. Let's continue reading. Since no one is answering me in my chat... Suzanne B., how you doing? Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. So yeah, does anybody remember? Truth Nation, you remember? Thank you. Tyson Barrett. He was the original lead investigator assigned to the case. And then like Brett Payne saying here, within the 24 hours, Tyson Barrett is removed as the lead investigator and Corporal Brett Payne was assigned. Let me grab my drink. So yeah. So Brett Payne in the first 24 hours is assigned as lead in the case. My guess is after Tyson Barrett is being removed, right? Jilly Bean. Thought it was December 2nd, 2022. I don't know. I just remember that on November 13th, there was a Moscow police like thing on their log or whatever that said Tyson Barrett was the lead investigator. Send all tips and everything to Tyson Barrett. And then he was removed, and Brett Payne and Blaker were assigned, and Tyson Barrett was no longer listed. I think the original posting to send all your tips and everything to the lead investigator, Tyson Barrett, is still on MPD's thing from back then. I could be wrong. Who did I miss over here? Jilly Bean, did I get you? Sorry, darling. Hi, how are you? Appreciate you being here. All right. I am going to go keep reading in another window, okay? So if I miss you in chat, so sorry. Okay, so Anne says, does that mean you have responsibility for the case and evidence? Yes, ma'am. Okay, as such, did you participate in a search for a suspect? Yes, ma'am. When was the first time you heard Brian Kohberger's name? The first time I heard Brian Kohberger's name was December 19th, 2022. And what was that a result of? That was a result of investigative genetics that was being undertaken by the FBI. We had a phone call that evening, and we were told Brian Kohberger's name. And before that, Mr. Kohberger was not on your radar? No, ma'am. Before December 19th, was the FBI CAS team member co-located with you? Yes, ma'am. How long had he been co-located with you? I don't remember. But it had been several weeks at that point. Okay. And was that Nicholas Balance? Yes, ma'am. What other FBI team members were co-located with you? Goodness, a lot. We had Technical Assistant Maria Tyndall, Special Agent Jacobson, and numerous other FBI special agents that were there to assist. Question. By the time it was December 19th and you first heard Brian Kohberger's name, had you reviewed video? Yes, ma'am. How many hours of videotapes do you think you reviewed? I don't remember. A lot. I can't give you an accurate representation. In those videotapes, did you focus in on any particular ones that were of interest to you? Yes, ma'am. In particular would be are you talking about addresses that were, how would you like me to refer to them? She says how you nicknamed the cameras. He says, so the first one was from 1112 King Road. It was camera, an exterior surveillance camera on a house that was immediately to the northeast of 1122 King. There was some footage from Linda Lane. This is where everybody's going to lose their fucking mind. Some footage from a Linda Lane camera. I forgot the address off the top of my head, he says. Okay, so all those people, here you go. All you who've spent hours upon hours of your life digging through that Linda Lane footage, thinking you're seeing bodies on the ground and people fighting and people being carried and, bodies being moved around. There you go. There you go. There's some footage from a Linda Lane camera Brett Payne is referencing here, but he forgets the address off the top of his head exactly what that footage is, where it came from. Mish girl, how you doing? Let me come back over to chat. So what do you guys think about that? There you go. There's that Linda Lane. Did Linda Lane just become relevant as many times as I've said, oh God, Linda Lane? Well, there you go. All of a sudden it's relevant again. That's right, Heather. Fuck my life. You know how long I've been trying to get away from that damn Linda Lane footage? Yeah. Well, I guess maybe I'll have to look at it. I probably won't, though. I just feel like, why? I don't have to. Everybody else has given up half their life looking at that footage, right? They're thinking they're hearing people talking, voices, people screaming things. There's people, bodies being moved and trunks being slammed because the kill kit is being thrown inside the trunk before the perp speeds away. And you know what I mean? In my brain, it just can't absorb that. But yeah, so here we go, friends. Linda Lane. There's mention of the Linda Lane camera, just so you guys know. Yeah, well, I mean, I figured it can't be actual evidence, right? Because it's out in the public sphere. It's and it became public, if I remember correctly. Did it become public after the gag order too? So, yeah, Linda Lane is brain crushing. Exactly, Dynamite. That's why I've tried to stay away from it. I'm like, oh God, I can't get into it. I got my own fucking rabbit holes. Some video. There's some footage from Linda Lane. Okay. Some. Just some. That's what they relied on. Some. Before everybody, thinks, oh my God, it's the Linda Lane footage. Apparently, only some of it was relied on, friends. Just some. All right. So, let's see here. Spicy chicken nuggets, how you doing? Thank you for being here. All right. Yeah, you better get those likes up, friends. Come on. It says there's 130 of you watching. Either give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs down. Even if you don't like me, I'm a funny bitch. So you can at least hit the like for that. All right, let's get back over here. There was footage from the A&W, which was at the corner of Louder and South Main, or Highway 95. There was footage from an address on Indian Hills, and there was also footage from a Ridge Road camera. Well, didn't Hitler say that no evidence of that was included? Didn't Hitler say there was no proof at all road camera was relied on? Payne just testified to it hours prior. This is that hearing that was held before the hearing we all got to see. Right? This is the sealed hearing. What, the day before? So Payne just testified the day before he relied on footage from Ridge Road camera. And Hitler just said in one of his decisions here, nope, there's no proof of that. I don't know. Am I wrong? Somebody let me know in chat. If I'm wrong, leave a 2 in the chat. I could have sworn that's what they said. Maybe I'm just... All right. And that's how we referred to them, was basically by those names. Okay. So Indian Hills, Ridge Road, right? Camera, Indian Hills camera, A&W camera, right? Linda Lane, and then 1112, right? Those are how they nicknamed the cameras. All right. With those references in mind, and keeping December 19th in mind, which of those cameras were your focus before you learned of Brian Koberger's name? I would say all of them were of importance before that. And it was later that other cameras became important. Is that right? Those were the main ones we relied upon for vehicles in particular, is what those ones were. I'm going to return to that in just a minute, but I want to talk to you about interviews. Did you interview any people in relation to this case before December 19th? Yes, ma'am. And did other officers interview people? Yes, ma'am. Were some of those people the roommates of the people at 1122 King? Yes, ma'am. Do you review other officers' work as well? Yes, ma'am. Did you have regular meetings with other officers about the status of the investigation? Yes, ma'am. Did you have any role in deciding to pursue investigative genetic genealogy? Yes, ma'am. It was a collaborative decision amongst the command team to go that route, but yes, I was part of that. Were you part of the discussion during the process of the identification? Yes, ma'am. Were you aware that Othram Laboratories began the work on the investigative genetic genealogy? Yes, Yes, ma'am. What kind of information did you receive from Othram? What kinds of information did you receive from Othram Laboratories? I don't remember what was received from Othram directly. I knew they were conducting their specific type of work. I don't remember exactly what they provided to us. Did you receive some documents from them? Yes, ma'am. Do you know how many documents you received from them? I do not. Was it one time or more than one time? I don't remember. Were you part of the discussion to take the work from Othram and go to the FBI? Yes, ma'am. Well, why was that decision made? From my understanding, granted, this is my first encounter with investigative genetic genealogy. So, again, collaborative discussion. We decided that because the Idaho State Police Lab and Othram had essentially exhausted their resources, this is how I understood it, that we would move to the FBI because they had more resources available to pursue this particular avenue. Well, do you know what more resources the FBI had? The only thing I was privy to was that they had more databases they could compare the sample to. That was the extent of my knowledge. Do you have familiarity with the databases and the rules that apply to them? No, ma'am. She says I'll save those questions. What was your communication with the FBI about ID? So our communication were just via telephone. The sample was sent to the FBI. I don't remember the date it was given over to them. But after that, there was very few conversations. And if they happened at all, they were just telephonic, advising us that the process was still in the works, when or if they had anything of interest for us. Do you know what files or documents went to the FBI from Othram? I do not remember. Did you receive documents from the FBI? In relation to IGG? Yes. I believe after the fact. After Steve Koberger's name, we did receive documents, but I don't remember what they were. Do you know how many documents related to IGG you received from the FBI? No, ma'am. I believe as part of the discovery it was in the thousands of pages, but that's the best of my knowledge. Well, thank you for that. All right. So once you have Mr. Koberger identified, what's your understanding of what that meant to have his name? Just in relation to the overall investigation is that, yes. So the only thing that was given to us was in Koberger's name. That was it. It was conveyed to us by the FBI that it was to be taken as no more than a tip. That was it. So once we received his name, we set about doing basically an independent verification of whether or not he was involved in this crime. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more. Do you know why the FBI connected Brian Koberger to the case? So December 20th, if memory serves, we had a secondary meeting with the FBI via Teams, if memory serves. And they simply walked us through the family tree and how they did that. Now, I don't remember the details of all of that. It was an in-depth conversation, to be honest, is above my head, but they essentially worked their way through the family tree and arrived at a conclusion that Brian Koberger was a person we should look into as a tip. That's the extent of my knowledge of how they did that. How was Brian Koberger, the name you received as a tip, linked to the case? He wasn't until after December 19th. What item of evidence did they link Brian Koberger to? I'm not sure what you're asking. As far as before December 19th, is that what you're referring to? Yeah. We didn't have one at that point. I'm going to stop here for a minute because sometimes my brain, when I need a second. So we're going to let this marinate together. She asked him, what item of evidence did they link Brian Koberger to? He says, as far as before December 19th, is that what you're referring to? Yes, she says. And he says, we didn't have one at that point. She's asking him about a specific item of evidence that they had. He's saying we didn't have one. Why did you become interested in learning the identity of Brian Koberger? I'm not quite sure I understand your question. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously the one thing we had that we thought was a very strong piece of evidence in this case. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as a potential avenue of identifying a suspect. Good thing I kept reading, huh? Is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that it was Brian Koberger's DNA on the sheath? That is not my understanding. Well, what is your understanding? My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Brian Koberger was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. Possible source of DNA that we should look into. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Brian Koberger's DNA is on the knife. That was never conveyed to me. Interesting. Is it your understanding that the FBI's work said it was Brian Koberger's DNA on the knife sheath? That is not my understanding. My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Brian Koberger was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Brian Koberger's DNA is on the knife sheath. That was never conveyed to me. What do you guys think about that little tidbit? That's interesting, huh? Don't forget here, he's being called as a defense witness. This isn't the state. This is the defense calling him in, right? So allegedly, according to Brett Payne here, the FBI never ever conveyed to him that it was in fact Brian's DNA on the knife sheath. And that it was never his understanding that that is what was being conveyed. I could be wrong, but yeah. There's 163 of you here. Hell yeah. Happy Friday, everybody. Let's have an awesome Friday night together. Quality Emerald, how are you? Kat K, thanks for being here. Hope everybody's having an awesome Friday. Yeah, that's kind of important, don't you think? That's pretty important, pertinent information right there, Tax Max. Tax Max Facts Thunderclap. How you doing? Appreciate you being here, as always. This is wild, huh? What do you think, Audrey, darling? I knew this was going to be your big forte right here, waiting for this damn transcript for IGG. Yeah. She calls them defense witnesses. I know, isn't that insane? They're listed as defense witnesses. 100 likes. There you go. Get it up. Get it, get it, get it. Doc, hit it. Appreciate you guys. I really do. Thank you so much. And thank you to whoever just hit the Cash App. You're awesome. It'll go right to the Starbucks Fund. It'll also help me out with all that damn money I just spent on stupid tires. All right, let's get back into this. Yeah, pretty wild, huh? Okay, so at no point ever was it conveyed to Detective Payne here by the FBI that it was actually Brian Koberger's DNA on the knife sheath. It was only conveyed to him that Mr. Koberger was a possible source of DNA to look into. They did not at any point say Brian Kohberger's DNA is on the knife sheath. That was never conveyed to me, says Brett Payne. On December 20th, when that happened, when he's somebody you should look into, what did you do? We had already started looking into him from the previous evening. Because remember, December 19th is when IGG identifies him. Correct? Allegedly. We began going through basically our sort of standard investigative procedures that we had been doing throughout the investigation for various leads to include basic DMV searches, NCIC offline returns, and NCIC searches. We have a database called TLO, which is a credit-based search we use to find basic information. So look at that. They'll just run your credit. So we started doing all those things, looking for information on Mr. Kohberger. And what you found out is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? Correct. Talk to me about going to Pennsylvania for the trash pull. Well, I was not in Pennsylvania for the trash pull. All right, I'll ask somebody else that later. All right, so after you receive Brian Kohberger's name, and he hasn't been on your radar at all before, is that right? Correct. All right, you had pursued interviews and surveillance video. Had you pursued evidence found inside the scene at 1122 King? Yes, ma'am. What efforts did you make to pursue unknown male B? You have to be more specific. I don't remember exactly where unknown male B came from. If I told you the lab report showed unknown male B came from a blood spot on the handrail going between the second and first floor, does that help jog your memory? Blood spot on the handrail going between the first and second floor. So it's not the handrail going from the second to the third floor. It's blood on the handrail from the first floor to the second floor. It's what it sounds like here. Yes? What do you think? Beachy D, so grateful you're here. Thanks for being here, Wade Bird. How you doing? Appreciate you. Just came back over to chat. What do y'all think about that, huh? So unknown male B was on the handrail going from the second to the first floor. So this would be, the handrail that leads up into the living room. Interesting, exactly. Yep. Claire Bear right out the front door. Yep. Yeah, he is the lead detective. He doesn't recall any of this. Is that right? Kaibo, is that right? Translucent. Miss Oh, Heather. Yeah, of course, darling. Take your time. Come back whenever you want. Love you. Yeah, translucent. Well, I thought it was pretty funny. Someone sent me that thing that she did was like, oh, in Potts land, beep beep. It's in the footnotes. All she has to do is read the documents. It's all over the footnotes. He states repeatedly he granted a full Frank's hearing for the IGG. So beep beep bitches. We may not have gotten a public Frank's. We got a Frank's regardless. A Frank's was granted. It was for the IGG. It was held under seal, and now we get to read the transcript for it. So beep, 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 bitches. Go clip that out, Viv. All right. Let's get back over to this. Well, apparently, left from the front door. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. All I know is that I think a lot of people were under the assumption that this was blood, a drop of blood on the handrail going from the second to the third floor. But apparently not. Beep, beep. That's right. Beep, beep, bitches. Beep, beep. Granted, we did not get the public Franks that I was hoping for, but Hitler made it abundantly clear in his decisions, in the footnotes, repeatedly, he did grant a full Franks hearing for the IGG to the defense. Honk honk. Dynamite. Honk honk. Yeah, it is going to be a wild ride, Wade. Mm-hmm. You know, and I ate my words. I said I was wrong. I did say, you know, I was quoting documents when I said, you know, because IGG is the origin, CODIS could not have been first. You know, I ate my words. It's fine. I was wrong. Okay, they did CODIS first. Fine. It's okay to be wrong. You know. All right. So, that's pretty interesting to learn that the blood spot. So she lets Corporal Brett Payne here know. If I told you the lab report showed unknown male B came from a blood spot on the handrail going and first floor, does that help jog your memory? Yes, ma'am. Why did you not pursue that person at that point in time? We had received Mr. Koberger's name. And from what my understanding was, entering another DNA profile into CODIS would remove the previous one and previous one we had from the knife sheath. So if memory serves, the discussion was we'll hold off. We'll stay with the one from the knife sheath, and if we need to, we can address unknown male B at a later time. Let's go back here for a minute. The reason I want to stop here for 1 second is because he is saying the reason that they did not pursue this unknown male B is because at that point in time, they already had Koberger's name. Right? That's what he's saying here. Didn't he just say they didn't get Koberger's name till December 19th? All this blood and the blood on the glove outside, all this extra evidence of other male DNA was collected by the 20th, and ISP was aware of it by November 20th. Correct? She is asking him, why did you not pursue male B? The blood, the drop of blood on the handrail. That blood had already been, all of the blood and everything from the scene had been collected by the 20th, correct? I could be wrong, but I hope there's a mod in here, someone in here that remembers the exact date. I could have sworn it was all collected by November 20th. Right? Mish Girl, yeah, correct. Okay. So that's interesting. Exactly, Laresia. He contradicts himself. He just got finished telling her he had no clue about Koberger until December 19th. But then regarding male B blood, that was clearly collected long before December 19th and known to police long before December 19th. He's saying the reason they didn't pursue it is because at that time they already had received Mr. Koberger's name. Meanie. I know, right? Payne saying we can only have one suspect at a time. Well, I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm saying that's why I like to read these docs together, right? We all get to look at it together and come to our own conclusions, right? But he's credible. The court found him to be reliable and credible. And Hitler's listening to him say this, right? Hitler is listening to him testify to this. So not 5 minutes before this statement is made, Payne has already said, I did not know of him until December 19th. But now he's saying the reason they didn't pursue male B blood, is because, well, we already had Koberger's name. What? Okay, let's move on. So, if memory serves, the discussion was we're going to hold off. We're going to stay with the one from the knife sheath. If we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later time. I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Were you not aware of unknown male B until after December 19th when you knew Brian Koberger's name? No, ma'am. I was aware of that before. How about unknown male D? Again, you're going to have to be more specific. If I told you unknown male D came from a lab report from a sample of blood on some gloves, plural, not a glove, gloves, outside the house, does that refresh your memory? Yes, ma'am, it does. Okay, so we know it's the same DNA. All of this DNA is located by November 20th in referencing this fucking gloves. The sample of blood in the gloves outside. This was collected by November 20th, and ISP became aware of this other DNA by November 20th. Okay, so it refreshes his memory. You're aware of that too? Yes, ma'am. I want to back up and talk about the affidavits. I think you told me in a prior hearing that you were the person that wrote Exhibit A, or the affidavit in support of the search warrants, when it came to looking for things about Brian Koberger. Did I understand that right? Yes, ma'am. And that affidavit, when you began, was that on about December 23rd to get records? As far as when I started writing the affidavit, is that what you're referring to? The first search warrant that applied to Brian Koberger. I believe it was December 23rd. Yes. When did you begin writing that affidavit? I began writing that affidavit long before that. It had been a running affidavit because at the beginning of it, there's the walkthrough of the crime scene. There's numerous things. It was a living document. Like our Constitution, friends, it's a living document. Brett Payne's PCA is a living document. Like the Constitution of the United States. I told you, he's Captain America. So we just add information to it. I'd say that document stated, I don't know, couldn't give an I'd say that document started, I don't know, couldn't give an exact date, a couple weeks prior to that, even before we knew Mr. Koberger's name. Help me understand what parts were added after you knew Mr. Koberger's name. Well, to walk down the line best I can, obviously there's the initial component, which is the crime scene, the testimony from the roommates. Then after, it shifts to, I believe, the first mention of, or the first component, was that Brian Koberger was pulled over by Corporal Duke on a traffic stop. He was also contacted by WSU police. His vehicle was ran by WSU PD officers. He was contacted by WSU police. Sidebar. Who's here in chat? Let me come back over to chat. Say hello. Everybody put some prayers up for Dinky, by the way. I know Dinky's probably not here, but Dinky, I am thinking about you. Very sorry to hear about your dad. And I hope whatever you got going on, take care of yourself is all I'm saying. And, come back when you can. We'll be thinking about you. So when was he contacted by WSU police? Anybody know that? Carla, how are you? Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. D Smalls, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Who else am I missing? KP, how are you? Thanks for being here. Echoes of Clarity, how are you? I am me, Beckles. Who else am I missing? Anybody? All right, Twiz, you still here? Darling. Yeah, keep his dad in your prayers. Yeah, love you, Dinky. Don't be hating, Captain America. Yeah, that's what I call Pain, Captain America. It's my new nickname for him. I'm sure he'll like it. It's not bad. People have called him much worse, you know. I think it's nice that I'm calling him Captain America. None your business. You just came in. Oh, you kind of missed a bit. Maybe go back and play it at 2 speed and catch yourself up. couple of couple of little freaking holy craps in here, that's for sure. All right. Let's get back into this. 188 of you here. Hell yeah. Thanks, friends. And maybe not friends. And spooks. And MPD, if you're here. Hello. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. All right. So apparently, Brian Koberger was also contacted by WSU police. They didn't just run his plate. He was also contacted, and his vehicle was ran by WSU PD officers. Then after that, we included trying to walk down through the thing without it in front of me. Oh, trying to walk down through the thing without it. And he's trying to walk through his affidavit and the steps he took without actually having the document in front of him to go by, because he doesn't remember what he did and he can't recall the steps he took. Then we included the vehicle information that was about the white Elantra. And after that, we included his residence and that he hit LPRs, or his vehicle had been seen on LPRs in Moscow or Pullman, and Pennsylvania. Hang on. After that, we included his residence and that he had hit on license plate readers, or his vehicle had been seen on license plate readers between Moscow or Pullman, and Pennsylvania. So maybe he meant to say, I don't know. He had to correct himself somewhere here. And then there was the component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. Okay, let's go back to that time before you started adding the traffic stop. That affidavit contains some information that you gained from other officers. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you didn't write large parts of that affidavit. Is that also right? I took a lot of language from experts and other officers and agents. That's correct. Are you aware your affidavit, your living document, was claimed by other people as their own original document, not giving you credit, but claimed as their own? Are you aware of that? Yes, ma'am. Are you aware that you probably know because Nicholas Balance was co-located with you? Did the two of you continually work on language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Let's look at that again. Are you aware that you probably know because Nicholas Balance was co-located with you? Did the two of you continually work on language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Did you and Nicholas Balance produce a map to show a possible route of travel for your suspect? Yes, ma'am. And, Your Honor, I am at Defendants 1A. I can either put it up on here or approach the court with the map. Hippler says, can I see what you're referring to? There's been a lot of Exhibit A's in this case. Got him. That's funny. Hippler says, I got to see what you're referring to because there's been a lot of Exhibit A's in this. That's hysterical. Got him. My brain. Don't be hating. I mean, if we can't laugh, right, we'll cry, so might as well laugh. That's how I feel about that. Pain and Balance produced a map. She's asking him, did you and Balance create this map? And he's like, we did. That's pretty funny, though, huh? I am the affidavit and the living document, right? He's the affidavit. The affidavit is a living document. It's literally just like the Constitution of the United States of America. It's a living document. It's free for everyone to use. It applies to everyone equally, and everyone is allowed to claim it as their own. Didn't you know? Thanks, Eddie. Linda Lane first hit the interwebs July 3rd. Okay, good to know, buddy. Thanks. David Bird. Oh my God. Yeah, that's what it sounds like, Twiz. And I wonder if this is the same map that when they were in front of Judge, she gives it to Payne and he's like, oh, I can't see this. It's all washed out. She's like, yeah, it's hard to see, isn't it? It's your map, motherfucker. Yeah, it is hard to see, isn't it? Ay, ay, ay. All right, I'll calm down. Let me chill out, get back over here. So Judge Hippler needs to see what they're referring to because in his opinion, in the eyes of Hippler, there have been a lot of Exhibit A's in this case. Just as housekeeping, you had mentioned you stipulated to the admission of sounds like a large chunk of records. Yes, Your Honor. It's the stack of exhibits that came behind the amended Franks motion from the defense. Hippler says, okay, and you want me to search through that to find stuff that you want me to rely on. Miss Taylor, I don't. I'm happy to give you my copy. Hippler, no, I don't mean that. As you know, I entered an order in this case that I'm not going to scour the record to find things that support your claim in this case. You have to cite them in particularity. And so I get concerned when I'm told I'm going to get a large document to be admitted that doesn't sound like it's going to be the focus of the actual hearing or much of it. Miss Taylor, well, Your Honor, I do have quite a few more questions for this detective. I'm trying to be mindful of my role here with him as far as Franks and his work in IGG. But when it's time for me to argue Franks, what I planned to do was to argue from the exhibits, identify them for the court, and hand the court my copy. So I to thumb through all the D1 and D2s. I just didn't bring another 1,000 pages with me. So she's literally telling him, sidebar, telling him, I didn't want to bring an extra 1,000 pages with me. So since I already have my copy and I'm not going to need it because I'm working from the exhibits, you can have my copy, which is going to literally point everything out for you and you won't have to thumb through nothing. And he's still like, nope. Giving her a hard time about it. Anyways, he says, I understand. My concern wasn't so much that I had in front of me was an actual paper. My concern is littering the record with things that are not referred to. If you're going to refer to specific documents in there, that's fine, but don't refer to necessarily. She says, oh, I absolutely understand that, Your Honor. Those were all put in so that counsel would be advised. He says, the fact that I admit this group of documents does not mean that it is something that can be relied on, absent you actually using it. Miss Taylor says, absolutely. I understand that, Your Honor, and I don't expect the court to read my mind. Thank you for that. Detective, I'm going to attempt to put this map up here. Is that the map you and Nicholas Balance came up with to help with probable cause? I'm going there for just a minute, and I'm going to ask you some other questions. I want to back up to the part of the first affidavit. This is asking for AT&T records. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And this AT&T record, is that the first set, the 48 hours of AT&T records? Yes, ma'am, I believe so. And are these AT&T records related to a phone Mr. Koberger had? Yes, ma'am. All right. And so in doing this affidavit, you have this working document, and I'm going to start with DM. If I say DM, do you know who I'm talking about? Yes, ma'am, I do. And she is one of the roommates. Is that right? The court, we're sealed. You can use the name. Sorry. Had to take a sip of my drink. Hang on, friends. I need to take my sweater off. I'm having a hot flash. Hang on. Sorry. Oh, yeah, right. Let me come back to comments over here. Hippler clearly doesn't like Ann Taylor. That's obvious. I think he's very, very rude to her. I think he speaks to her for no reason at all. This is just my opinion. I think he's an absolute asshole to her for no reason at all. That's my opinion. Like in real life, if he wasn't a judge, if he wasn't whatever, I understand decorum. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I can throw decorum right out the window. I think he's an absolute asshole the way he speaks to her. He has no respect for her. And it's clear when he speaks to her, he has no respect for her. And it's wild. She must have pissed in his Cheerios or something. I don't know. Whew. Dear God. It's like 1,000,000 degrees right now. Hang on, friends. Listen, I'm just... Gotta wait a minute. Because when I'm having a hot flash, like literally, if there's anybody else who knows exactly what I'm talking about, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Because it just happens out of nowhere where literally... your body feels like it is burning 1,000 degrees from the inside out, and sweat will just profusely pour down your face for no reason at all. And then it goes away in just a couple of minutes, and then I'm freezing again. Holy shit, let me get my fan. Hi. All right. Yeah, right. All right, so here we go. Yeah, he doesn't like Ann Taylor. That's just my opinion. He's definitely very rude to her, I think. Stargaze, how are you? Thank you for being here. If there's anybody I'm missing, I'm so sorry. I'm just getting back to chat now. Cletus, how you doing? Cletus, I love that name. James Moen, how are you? Thanks for being here. Appreciate you coming in. Thomas, how are you? All right. If there's anybody else I missed, sorry. Your girl's melting over here. Give me a minute. All right. Oh, do you, quality? Oh, see, I can't. Yeah, Willie, it's a chick thing. Don't worry about it. You don't ever have to worry about it. Lucky you. Listen, Linda, right? Sadly. Yeah, it's just for the girls. Twiz. Twiz says, stop thinking about me, Miss Potts. Oh, stop, Twiz. All right. Kylie B, how are you? The transcript is on the Cases of Interest website, darling, and it looks like it was the very last document that hit the website. Cases of Interest website for Idaho. Should be able to find it there. All right. Let's get back over. Yes, Larisha, I agree with you. I think he's very demeaning. Yeah. It's just my opinion. I just think he talks to her very rudely for no reason at all. But Jeff H2, how are you? Jeff H2. Hippler don't take no mess. Is that really Jeff H or no? I don't know. Everybody's got a damn troll account. Kane B, how are you? How are you? Oh, it's definitely there, darling. Kylie, that's where I got it from. It is, yeah, it's definitely there. I think it says something like sealed transcript or something like that. Hopefully, maybe one of my mods, if you don't mind, find it and put the link in chat for the Oh, wait, hang on. Maybe I can do it, honey. Copy. Here I am telling a mod to go get it. I can just do it right here, darling. There you go. Kylie. It should come through for you. There it is. And I will put that up. Using Jeff H2. Oh, it is you, Jeff? All right. Hi, how you doing? Jeff H is blocked? Oh, gotcha. Yeah, Heather probably took care of that. Yeah, it is 175 pages. Yes, it is. Probably, obviously, we're not going to get through all 175 pages tonight, but, we can cover a good chunk, get a few laughs. All right. So here, Hippler is letting her know that because they're sealed, she can say Dylan's name. And Miss Taylor says, I can use the name, trying to get a habit. So, redacted. Who is she? And so her name's redacted anyway, even though he tells her she can use it. They're referring to DM. Who is she? She was one of the surviving roommates. And how many times was DM interviewed by law enforcement at the time you wrote this December 23rd report? Okay, so how many times had she been interviewed at the time that you wrote the report? If memory serves, it was 4, I think, 3 or 4. In the affidavit, you wrote a statement that she had heard Kaylee go upstairs, yell, "Someone's here," and run back down the stairs. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And you used the words she thought she heard? Do you remember that? Miss Jennings, Your Honor, I'm going to object. I'm objecting based on the scope of what this testimony is supposed to be. My understanding was it was limited solely to the issue of Franks and IGG. Hippler says, I was just about to ask the question. I don't recall the statements of DM being a subject of a motion to suppress separate from the Franks issue. Am I correct about that? That is correct, Your Honor. Okay, so we're not at a Franks hearing on that issue. The only issue we're at a Franks hearing on is the IGG. Hey, there you go. Clip it out, Viv. The only issue they were having this hearing for Franks was for the IGG, because Hippler granted the defense a full Franks for the IGG. Miss Taylor, all right, well, let me rephrase. Let me start from a different place. The court, I'll sustain the objection. Miss Taylor, she says, let's go to the part of your affidavit for December 23rd, AT&T 1, the part where you put in things particular to Brian Koberger. You put in that affidavit, a traffic stop, I believe, from August in Moscow. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. The traffic stop, was that on your radar before December 19th when you learned of Brian Koberger's name? No, ma'am. The next thing you relied on was a traffic stop at WSU. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Was that traffic stop on your radar before you knew of Brian Koberger's name on December 19th? No, ma'am. You put in information about front license plates being missing from Pennsylvania cars. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. The 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see whether it had a front license plate. Is that right? That sounds correct, yes. So it was after you learned of Brian Koberger's name that became part of your affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Let's talk about the vehicle identification for a minute before I run back down through the rest of that affidavit after Brian was identified. When you worked with Special Agent Eimel to identify a vehicle, was there more than one vehicle he identified? When you worked with Special Agent Eimel to identify a vehicle, was there more than one vehicle he identified? I don't believe there was, if memory serves. It was just the Hyundai Elantra. Would you agree that he was most comfortable with the years 2011 to 2013? Ms. Jennings, objection, Your Honor, for the same reason I don't understand the scope related to IGG. Ms. Taylor, Your Honor, I'm going to ask for a little leeway on this one. I think it will be clear in about 2 more questions. It is a sealed proceeding. I'll be arguing it at Frank's. The court, I don't want to pollute the record, so approach. Bench conference. Ms. Taylor, they looked for 2011 to 2013. It was their bolo. It was after Brian was identified. By IGG, they expanded the search. Hippler says, that relates to what? Ms. Taylor, it's going to relate to Frank's, but it has to do with IGG and when they identified him. I have about 2 more questions along this line. The court, you have the separate Frank's motion regarding the scope of the car search. Ms. Taylor, absolutely. The court, that we're not here for today. We're here for the IGG. I get the idea that if the IGG is suppressed, the warrants based on IGG is suppressed. That affects a lot of other things, right? But I don't think you need to get into the evidence of that at this point because it's part of the Franks. There's a separate Franks motion on that. Ms. Taylor, there absolutely is. The next question I'm going to get to in the affidavit after the IGG was the police in Pullman running the car. And he has laid it out in the affidavit after IGG without stating it. So I'm doing the IGG part with him now. That car is a different year than the one the bolo is for. That's as far as I'm going with the car at this hearing. The court, counsel, Ms. Jennings, I don't understand what that has to do with the IGG. It's part of a Franks hearing related to vehicle identification. I understand her timeline, but I think that point has already been made. Ms. Taylor, this was when I was allowed to explore this witness since he's already here and we paid for him to come here. He was paid to come there. The court, yeah, but I didn't open up everything to Franks because we couldn't get into all the other things that I understood we could get into the entirety of Franks on IGG, which is why I allowed it. And that's where we're going to stick to today. Ms. Taylor says, IGG flows. It makes everything. Court cuts her off and says, well, I'm not suggesting we get into other Franks issues that sprung in part from IGG because those are separate based, right? And so I think we need to just talk about the specific IGG stuff today in terms of Franks. There's not a separate motion to suppress based solely on that and not the IGG, if I'm not mistaken, apart from the Franks motions. She says to suppress, which I'm not following. I'm sorry. He says there are to suppress that are not Franks related. She says, right, I'm not going there. He says, that's evidence we can put on today, but I thought we were going to do that later today. Ms. Taylor says, absolutely. The court, there are various Franks motions, one of which is to suppress. One of the Franks motions is that there was a Franks violation by not informing the magistrate of the use of IGG in violations, as you allege them, in obtaining the IGG. That's the issue we are doing today in terms of evidence, and I want to stick to that. So getting into the car, which is separate, which I understand your argument is the IGG led them to expand the search of the cars. But that's not the Franks issue itself. The Franks issue itself on IGG is the IGG itself, and it's limited to that. Ms. Taylor, all right, and the bench conference is then concluded. So that was their sidebar. Let me come back over to chat. Holy shit. What do you guys think? Wow. My goodness gracious. Who's still here? Wow, there's over 200 people watching. All right, hello. Absolutely 13. How are you? Thanks for being here. Phil Biggs, always good to see you. Appreciate you being here. If there's anybody else and you've been here and I missed you, so sorry. I was in another window. All right. So yeah, that's interesting, huh? That was a nice little sidebar bench conference. Yep, cars, plural. Probably just another typo though, right? Need some Z's. Probably just another typo. The very first page says defendants. Defendants and cars, both plural. Interesting. And Anne had just asked him, was there more than one car identified? And he says no. And she left it alone at that. And then Hitler at this bench conference sidebar is saying to her, I understand that your argument is that the IGG is what led them to expand the search of the cars, plural. So that's interesting. Cammie, how are you? Thanks for being here. Yeah, this is a lot, right? Echoes? Holy shit. That's why we got to take breaks and it's 211 people here. Look at this. Amazing. It's $5. Wow. You guys are awesome. All right. I had quite a few people throw like $5, $10 towards the Star Beast Fund. You're freaking awesome. Thanks, guys. Well, that'll keep me going the next couple days reading docs. You know what I mean? All right. CAR is after IGG, so it makes sense. CAR has nothing to do with suppressing the IGG. I don't know. According to Hitler here, he understands the reason that Anne is even mentioning anything to do, her line of questioning has anything to do with the car, is because according to Hitler here, he understands that her argument is that the IGG is what led them to expand the search of the cars. Plural. So I don't know. Probably just another typo like that whole defendants thing, right? You know what I mean? Puppies for peace. How are you? Thanks for being here. Do a quick summary and highlight. I mean, honey, there's been so much I don't even know where to start. Official, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. I really don't know where to start. To be honest with you, darling. Hi. All right. Let's see. I know, right, Connie? Isn't that wild? Well, keep looking, official. It'll come. Okay? Keep looking. That's all you can do. I was out of work for a long time myself, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Keep looking. They seriously got his name and then tried to make everything fit. Yeah, that's what it sounds like, right? Ooh, Kane's got a summary for us. I can take a break and Kane's going to give a summary. Do it, Kane. Kaibo. Moonlight, how are you? So good to see you. Don't worry, a child predator was just released in Idaho after appeal for wrong search of the vehicle. This man has multiple arrests and now he's free again. Mark B, hi, how are you? Thank you for being here. Yvonne Poole. Hitler could be an incel. That's fucked up. That's a good one, though. Wow. All right, what you got for me, Kane? What's your summary? I don't even know where to begin, right? It starts out with defendants as plural. We now have cars, plural. Payne says that he was never, ever once, it was never conveyed to him by the FBI ever that it was in fact Brian Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath. He says that was never, ever once conveyed to him or told to him or mentioned to him or anything. That was not his conclusion of anything to do with the IGG or what he was told about IGG. So that's interesting. That's my summary. Those are some of the highlights that stick in my brain. Denise, how are you? Thanks for being here. Appreciate you so much. Happy Friday. Puppies. Stay away from crypto. Lost $500 today. Oh, ouch. That's a hit. Sorry to hear that, friend. All right. Elisanda. Is that how I say your name? Elisanda. Yes. You heard that right, darling. In the very beginning of Corporal Payne's testimony, he says that it was never conveyed to him by the FBI and it was not his understanding of the IGG that it was in fact Brian Kohberger's DNA on the sheath. Read it this morning. Moonlight. Yeah. Oh, you saw what they were. Yeah. You saw it this morning. Yeah. Whew. All right. Let me take a little sip. Then we'll get back into this. This is a wild ass transcript, huh? That was a crazy little sidebar too. Between Jennings, Hippler, and Miss Taylor over here. Gracias. Perfect, she says. Oh, good. I did pronounce it right. Elisanda. Gracias. Mi amiga. Mi muchacha. All right, let's see here. Elizabeth Munster, evening. You're back. Well, welcome back. Happy to see you here, darling. Happy Friday. All right, so this transcript's crazy. It's 175 pages. I don't even know where we're at. What are we at? 31. Ay, we're only at 31. It's a lot to get to, friends. Angel GB, how are you? Thanks for being here. If I didn't already say hi to you, how are you, honey? Happy Friday. Glad you could make it. All right. You're very welcome, Denise. Anytime. Appreciate it. Yeah, and Payne was paid to be here. That's another highlight. He was paid to come to do this. So. Oh, yes, you're right, I am me. That was the other thing. They ignored male blood B that was on the handrail going from the first floor to the second floor because, according to Payne, they already had Koberger's name at that time. So they were just going to focus solely on the sheath DNA portion of the evidence at that time. So Payne is claiming that he did not know of Koberger until December 19th. And then he is also claiming the reason that they didn't test unknown male B blood is because they already had Brian's name at that point. And it's my understanding unknown male blood B along with the blood D from the gloves outside. That was all known to ISP and law enforcement by November 20th. So we have a little bit of a contradiction in the testimony, but I'm sure Hippler will find an excuse for that contradiction. As we know, he already did find an excuse for the contradiction, hence the denial of the motion to suppress the genetic information. Right? He already cleaned this up for Payne anyway. It's just going to be funsies to read through the transcript. Janet, UK, how are you? Happy Friday. Thanks for being here. All right. Let's get back into this, friends. Okay. Bench conference concluded. All right. Court, I'm going to sustain the objection. All right. Miss Taylor. All the things in the warrant that became particular to Brian Koberger were not on your radar before you learned his identity through IGG. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And you elected not to put the IGG identification in your probable cause affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. What led to that decision? Well, that decision was collaborative. We made that decision in an effort to independently verify the information that was provided to us as a tip from the FBI. In much the same way we would any other tip in law enforcement. So it was not in any way meant to obfuscate any sort of information. It was simply, can we validate Mr. Koberger's involvement in this incident or can we not? That was it. As a group effort, you decided to intentionally leave that out of your affidavit. She's literally like, wait a minute, excuse me? So as a group effort, the whole group decided, every officer, the over 100 agents between MPD, IE, and the FBI, all in this group effort. She says, as a group effort, you decided to intentionally leave that out of your affidavit? Yes, ma'am. Given the limitation at this point, I think that's all my questions. The court, all right. Cross-examination. Here we go. Cross-examination by Miss Jennings. Miss Jennings has only one question for Mr. Payne here. Good morning, detective. I only have one question for you. Let's go back to December 19th, December 20th, and the information that was provided to the team. Correct? It was a team? Yes, ma'am. And who all was part of this team that was receiving this information telephonically from the FBI? So there were several of us. Yourself, Mr. Thompson, Darren Gilbertson from the Idaho State Police, Ed Jacobson from the FBI. I believe there were a couple of other folks from the FBI and ISP in the room. I don't remember exactly who they were. And then myself. There were numerous people that were involved. So when they're making this group effort decision for everyone to decide, right, to do this IGG, they're receiving the information telephonically, right? Thompson's there, and so is Miss Jennings. Would it have been essentially the team leaders for the investigation? Yes. Was this any different than the other information sharing that occurred during the case? Not at all. There were routine team discussions? Yes, ma'am. We had 2 official briefings every day of the investigation, morning and evening. So twice a day, we would all link up. And that was not just the command team. That was everyone who was not actively on an interview would come back to the police department, sit in the same room, and discuss the information that was learned from that day. So it was very common throughout this investigation for us all to be in the same room and discussing the same information. So you were not the only investigator receiving information from various sources. Absolutely not. So when we talk about this Exhibit A, that wasn't necessarily just your Exhibit A. No, ma'am, it was not. It was all the information that the investigators had up to that point. Yes, ma'am, that is an accurate statement. Now, related to I thought she only had one question. Now, related to the IGG and the information you were provided by the FBI, in the information provided, did you receive any medical information about Brian Koberger? No, ma'am, I did not. I don't have anything further, thank you. The court, redirect? Miss Taylor, yes, Your Honor. Miss Jennings was just talking to you about the team, I guess, that got together a couple times a day from November 13th until December 19th or 20th is our target time right now. Yes, ma'am. Who from the FBI was part of those daily meetings? Like I said, Special Agent Jacobson was there. Maria Tyndall was there. I believe Special Agent Rob Hill was involved. I'm trying to think of any other names. I don't remember any. Well, you just gave Jennings different names than you're giving her. Hang on. Let me go look at this. Didn't he just give her different names? Yeah. Oh, FBI. Ed Jacobson. Couple of other folks. Yourself, Mr. Thompson. Okay, my bad. Sorry. Sorry, Captain America. I won't go hard at you. All right. Get back down here. Did you receive any medical information? No, I did not. Cross-exam. Redirect. Yes. All right. So this team that got together a couple times a day from November 13th until December 19th or 20th is the target date, correct? Yes, ma'am. All right. Who from the FBI was part of the daily meetings? Okay. Special Agent Jacobson was there. Maria Tyndall was there. I believe Special Agent Robert. Trying to think of other names. I don't remember any. There were others there. I just don't remember who they are. I apologize. That's okay. How about who else from the Moscow Police Department was there? So Captain Blaker was there. I believe usually DeVargas was there. Sometimes Chief Fry would sit on those meetings. And most nights, Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings. Captain Dollinger, Anthony Dollinger, was in those meetings from MPD, trying to think of all the others. Basically, the whole command team from MPD itself would be in those meetings. And then whoever else was available from the investigation section would also come in. Who from ISP was there? Darren Gilbertson was there. I believe Detective Joe Lake was there most days. Oh, that's the guy that showed Dylan Bryan's mugshot. I can't remember who else was consistently there. I remember those two for sure. Lieutenant Mike Mooney was in those meetings. That was the three off the top of my head. When was the first time you talked about the identification of Brian Koberger in those meetings? As far as when we knew of him? Yes, December 19th. How many hours of meetings do you think you had up until the identification of Brian Koberger? Goodness, many. I don't know. It was a lot. Twice every day. She says twice every day? Yes, ma'am. 7 days a week. If not more than that, yeah. If not more than that. Twice a day every day. 7 days a week. If not more than that. Oh, okay. His response to 7 days a week, he says, if not more than that. I mean, it can't be more than that, Payne. There's only 7 days in the week, darling. All right. And she says, thank you. That's it. And then, detective, you can step down. Defense can call its next witness, Miss Taylor. I'm sorry. You can call your next witness, she said. He, does not like her. She is saying, I'm sorry, because maybe she didn't hear what he said. And he's like, you can call your next witness. She calls Riley Nolan. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give? Yes, Riley Nolan gets sweared in. Okay. State your name, blah, blah, blah. How are you employed? She is the forensic laboratory manager with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Laboratory in Meridian, Idaho. How long have you worked there? Worked for the Idaho State Police since November 2002. Did you have prior experience similar? Prior to my employment with ISP, I did not. Where were you trained for your job? I have formal education. I was originally hired as a forensic scientist in the biology DNA unit. As such, I was required to have a degree in biology, biochemistry, or similar. I was required to have course in genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry, and statistics. And then I completed the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Specialized Training Program in biology screening, as well as DNA analysis, as well as in DNA database analysis. And then I've completed hundreds of hours of continuing education over my years. Are you a member of any professional organizations? Yes, ma'am. Which I'm a member of the Northwest Association of Forensic Science, the American Association of Forensic Scientists, and the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors. Are you part of a collaborative? Yes, I am a member of National Technology and Validation Implementation Collaborative. What is that one about? That is a group of compromised, I'm sorry. It's a group comprised, not compromised. They are not compromised. They are comprised. Sorry, guys. That is a group comprised of laboratory management, typically. It depends on which portion or section, subsection of the collaborative that have gathered together to generate ideas for best practices and guidelines for new technologies coming into forensics. Would investigative genetic genealogy be a new technology coming into forensics? That is one of the technologies. However, our group refers to it as FIGG, Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy. FIGG. Okay, I'll try to remember that. That's the one I want to talk about today. So your group is talking about best practices for FIGG. Is that right? Here we go. Best practices. Me pause here for 1 second, friends. I'm going to come back over to chat. How's everybody doing? For fuck's sake, Fitziana, you're back. Billy and Billy, how are you? Thanks for being here. All right. CSTR girl. How you doing? Thanks for being here. Maybe both, Miss Potts. Yeah, I know, right? I don't know. You were probably right with compromise. I know. I did not mean to say that. I just read it wrong, I promise. Freudian slip, you know what I mean? All right. Let's see here. Thank you for going through this with us, amiga. This is great. Oh, you're very welcome. Of course, darling. Anytime. We're going to have fun on a Friday night together. Meg P. What? Steve W., you're back. Well, welcome back. Part of Captain Underpants' theme song. Snap your fingers and he'll be right there. That freaky bald dude in his underwear will drop his trousers. He'll be there to save the day. Oh my God. Meg. Intellectual particle accelerator. Activated. I think my intellectual particle accelerator in my brain has been activated reading through the fucking transcript. My gosh. Wow. All right. So here's what we're going to do because your girl needs to go pee. I'm going to go use the restroom. I suggest everybody else do the same. And when I come back, we're going to get into the testimony of Riley Nolan here and read through some of that. Yeah, sound like a plan? I got to pee. I'll be right back. I'm going to mute. Chat amongst yourselves. All righty, Rue, I'm back. Sorry about that. Your girl had to pee. So sorry. All right. How many people clicked out while we were paused and they came in and saw that there was no audio and bounced? If there's anybody who joined chat and I didn't see you, sorry. Hello, how are you? Thank you for being here. We're about to get into the testimony of Riley Nolan in this sealed IGG hearing held for Franks. So I'm hoping, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm hoping that Riley Nolan's testimony is where we get to learn that these four brothers, alleged low probability brothers, were identified. Anybody else hoping we're going to learn about that here? That'll be fun, huh? I want to know when these four alleged brothers were identified. Hopefully, Riley Nolan here is going to have some answers to that. All right. True Crime Unraveled. How you doing? Thanks for being here. All right. Let's get into this. All right. Okay. So, Anna's asking her FIGG. She's going to try to remember that because Riley Nolan refers to it as FIGG. Anne says, so your group is talking about best practices for FIGG. Is that right? That's one of our areas of focus. Correct. Are you doing that because there are practices that are important in this discipline? We are doing that because it's a new technology coming into the forensics world, and not every laboratory manager has a background in DNA. We also have a group on firearms because not every laboratory manager has a background on firearms. And it's just a resource for those managers as they're looking to implement new technologies. You mentioned best practices. Does that have anything to do with the things that I might refer to as standards or procedures or protocols? No. Well, what does best practices mean? Best practice is a recommendation based on the current knowledge in the field. There are organizations that put standards for different fields, but this group, that is not their purpose. In your lab, do you have standards and procedures and protocols? Our laboratory does have, we call them analytical methods, as well as our quality system. Analytical methods and quality systems means the same thing as procedures and protocols? Yes. What does that mean to you? What that means to me, our laboratory is an accredited laboratory. So we have a set of accreditation standards that we must meet. In order to do that, we have set quality policies as well as the analytical methods for each discipline. That ensures that we are consistently performing our scientific analysis in a way that has been validated and shown to be proper for the testing that's being conducted. And it also shows that we are meeting the national standards by which we are accredited. In addition, DNA has an additional standards that they must meet called the FBI's Quality Assurance Standards for Forensic Casework Laboratories, as well as for forensic databasing laboratories. I want to start with the first part of it. You mentioned, I think, that there's standards and protocols, my definition of them, that helps assure your work so that somebody could look and see what you did and maybe get the same result or understand what you did. Do I understand that right? Yes. It's the methods we follow, and yes, that would be one application someone could look and see what we did. Now, you mentioned at the very end of what you told me before, DNA is something separate. Correct. What do you mean? Because our laboratory is a participant in the National DNA Index System, it's commonly referred to as CODIS, which stands for the Combined DNA Index System. We are subject to additional standards set forth by the FBI because they manage that database. What are those standards? Those standards are known as the QAS standards. They cover everything. When I listed the classes I had at the beginning, they decide what classes a DNA analyst coming in should have, what education a DNA technical leader should have, what things need to be included in a validation study, how facilities need to be controlled. It covers the gamut of testing. validation study. What does that mean? Whenever a new chemistry, a new instrument, a new procedure is coming online in the laboratory, we perform a study to ensure that the chemistry, instrument, or procedure is working or receiving the expected results. Okay? And to be sure, you have to do that because you use CODIS. Our DNA section has to do that, CODIS. The rest of the because part of our accreditation standards. A section has to do that because we use CODIS. The rest of the laboratory because part of our accreditation standards. Okay? Tell me what CODIS is briefly. Combined DNA Index System is essentially a national DNA database. It exists on 3 levels. There's a local level, your county sheriff's office, local PDs. There's state level, which is typically the state laboratory. It is limited to public laboratories. And then there's the national level. In Idaho, the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Lab in Meridian is the only DNA lab in the state. So there are no local labs in the state of Idaho. And the database contains different indices. There's a forensic index. Those are profiles obtained from items of evidence. There's an offender index. Those are samples from those convicted of qualifying offenses in your state as determined by your state legislature. If your state legislature allows arrestees, there's an arrestee index. There's also a missing persons index and for remains. Do you have any special role with the CODIS database? Currently, I'm a CODIS user. That is my only role at the moment. What was your role in the fall, November of 2022? A CODIS user. Do you have any administrative responsibilities with CODIS? Not currently. Have you in the past? In the past, I have served as the alternate state administrator for Idaho. For CODIS, DNA that goes into CODIS, what kind of profile is used? If I'm understanding the question correctly, there's different types of DNA profiles, and what goes into CODIS is known as an STR profile or short tandem repeat. What kind of information is in a short tandem repeat or STR? Can I give a brief explanation about DNA? Sure. So DNA is a substance that's found in the cells of our body. It acts as a blueprint. It tells our bodies what form to take and how to function. Between individuals, it is over 99% the same. That is why we all have the same basic structure and our bodies function basically the same way. In forensics and in STRs, we are targeting that less than 1% that is unique to an individual. With the exception of identical twins, and so areas of DNA that vary widely between individuals don't code for anything typically. So it doesn't tell us anything about a person. When I look at an STR profile, I can tell you if that person is genetically male or genetically female, and that is all. As the STR is a series of repeating nucleotides. The SMP then, is that a closer look at a person's genome? I would like to state that I'm not an expert in SMPs. I'm not qualified in the IGG and have not ever been qualified in the SMP. With STR, depending on the chemistry, we're looking at anywhere from 13 to 20 plus locations. My understanding is in general minimum of 10,000. Does that mean there's more information about a human contained in an SMP than there is in an STR? Mr. Nye, Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. This witness is not disclosed as an expert, and she just testified she's not an expert in SMP technology. Hippler says, I appreciate that with respect to her answer, and I will take that into account in the event the defense intends to rely on that testimony. I took it as a sort of background about her general knowledge. I'll allow it for now. I'm not taking it as expert testimony about that SMP beyond the basic understanding of what an SMP is. Miss Taylor says, thank you. And she says, do you remember my question? Yes, I would assume if you're looking at a larger part of the human genome, that you would be getting a larger amount of information about someone. I have one more question about CODIS, and then I want to move in a different area. You mentioned there's 4 indexes, and you talked about a forensic index. Correct. What is that one used for? The forensic index is where profiles generated from items of evidence can be uploaded. There are rules about what can be uploaded, though. It cannot match someone known to be the victim of a crime. It cannot match someone whose DNA should be in a place outside of a crime being committed. It cannot be anything taken directly from a suspect of a crime where you would reasonably assume their DNA would be present. It must be related to a crime, and it must be believed to be from the putative perpetrator of that crime. So if I understand it, you use DNA, get an STR, and only under certain circumstances can you use CODIS. Do I understand that right? Correct. Okay. Outside of CODIS, and I understand what that does, if you create a profile, a DNA profile of somebody, is that a separate thing you do in your lab, even if you're not going to run it through CODIS? Yes. When we receive items of evidence or samples from known individuals, we generate a DNA profile from those. Did you become involved in the homicide in Moscow from 2022? Involved as laboratory in Meridian. I haven't actually done any work on any evidence in the case or issued any reports. All right. Is it fair to say you did not go to that residence then? Correct. As the lab manager, do you understand about what evidence has come into the lab from that case? There was a lot of evidence submitted. I have a general knowledge of the items that have come in, but I could not provide you a detailed list off the top of my head. That's okay. I won't ask you to. Thank you. As a lab manager, are you aware of different bits of testing that were done related to this case? In general, yes. Are you aware of a profile called Unknown Male A? Yes. Where did that come from? To my recollection, Unknown Male A came from a swab taken from a knife sheath that was submitted by Moscow Police Department. Are you aware of? I believe that was another sample from hearing the previous testimony that was in the house. I would only want you to testify from your own base of knowledge. From my own memory, I don't recall exactly where B was from. Fair enough. Thank you for clarifying. Are you aware that investigative genetic genealogy or forensic investigative genetic genealogy was used in this case? Yes. What was your role in that? My role specific to this case was facilitating the signing of a memorandum of understanding, making sure all parties received it and had signed it. Those parties being the police agency, the prosecuting attorney's office, as well as a member of ISP's management. And then was received, my job was to look over it, ensure that it had all the required pieces in the report, and then authorize payment of the invoice for that testing. What role did you have with the laboratory that was going to perform the IGG work? As far as we came to be in contract with them, so when ISP decided to pursue a contract with a laboratory that could perform the SMP testing that we talked about earlier, we're a state agency. So we don't just get to call up somebody and hire them. So we had to go through a bid process. So part of my role was develop work for that invitation to bid, as in expected the vendor to perform. And then when the bids came in, I was involved in the team that evaluated the documents that were submitted. And then ultimately, the division of purchasing determined who won the bid. Did the Idaho State Police Forensics have a contract with this laboratory, Othram? They were the winning bid through that process, and so they were under contract with the Department of Purchasing. Is the contract with the Department of Purchasing that you perform these services and we pay you for them, essentially? Or does it have more meat to it to talk about some of the things that you were talking about, how you helped develop, I guess, the job description and what would be required. I am really not familiar with the Department of Purchasing's day-to-day operations or how they operate. My role was strictly developing that scope of work. We expect them to develop the profiles that can be uploaded to the public genealogy databases. We expect them to provide us a written report. We expect the report to contain certain things, to have a header, to have a date, to have page numbers, those kinds of things. Outside that description of the scope of the work and the requirements, did your lab have a separate contract basically said you agree to do these things? Did from the Division of Purchasing, and that's the state contract for performing that work. You mentioned a memorandum of understanding you helped facilitate to be signed by the parties. Was Othram one of the parties that signed that? No. This is a memorandum between law enforcement agencies, the prosecuting attorney's office, and the laboratory. And in that memorandum of understanding that indicated that the interim Department of Justice interim policy applied. Is that right? I don't have the exact text memorized. If I showed you a copy of that memorandum of understanding, would that help you remember if that was part of it? Yes. Your Honor, if I have just a moment to gather that, it's not being offered as an exhibit. The court says just refreshing. Ms. Taylor says it's to aid her memory. Court says show it to the state's counsel. And it must have been approved because it's given to her. And she says, does looking at that refresh your memory as to whether the Department of Justice interim policy applied? It does say in the first paragraph that it did apply. And Your Honor, I'm going to refer to Defense Exhibit D19 here and ask the witness to be shown that. And then I'll provide the court my copy. The court, when was this filed? That would have been filed with the amended Frank's memorandum page. I'm sorry. The court, I've got thousands of filings. I have to go by date to find things. I think it was November 18th or 20th. At the bottom of that page, however, you can see some numbers in red, and those were numbered to make it easier to find. The court, I just need to find it in the computer first. All right. I found it in my printed documents. This fucking guy, man. Is that the Department of Justice interim policy? Yes, the Department of Justice interim policy on forensic genetic genealogical DNA analysis and searching. And in Section 7, I believe it's Section 7 or page 7, it says investigative caution, that section. Let me ask you the question. Are you familiar in that policy that says prosecution case, if somebody is arrested and their prosecution case, all forensic investigative genetic genealogy should be preserved for court purposes? I believe that is part of, I don't think it's in Section 7. It might be, but I believe that is part of preserving. Okay. What I want to know is, what did Othram preserve? I don't know. Well, what did you get back? We received a preliminary report. In other cases, we will sometimes get back the DNA extract that was sent to them. I don't recall if we got that back in this case. Anything our laboratory receives, we return to the submitting. Would validation be part of that? Validation studies? I wouldn't assume so. I wouldn't assume that we'd be part of this. No. Would bench notes be important? The court, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What notes? Bench notes, lab bench notes. The court, thank you. The witness, for our laboratory, we designate those as part of our case record. I'm not familiar with what Othram designates as part of their case record. So I guess that means you don't have any of those. Nope, only the preliminary report. All right. I will move to a different area of questioning, and it's about the requirements with Othram. You mentioned the goal was to create profiles and create a report, but to search public databases. Correct. There are public genealogy databases that will allow entry of law enforcement samples, and that is part of the scope of work. They were required to enter it into those databases. And are you aware there are databases that do not allow law enforcement to search? Yes. Were you part of work after Othram began their work to try and do an investigation? I was not. As far as, I guess I'm unclear. We received evidence submitted to the laboratory before, during, and after for all sections. Is that what you're referring to? Let me rephrase my question. I think the question was too broad. While Othram was doing their work, were you part of any work to help Othram? For instance, did you get any documents that you did some research on to try to help Othram? No. Were you aware that Othram was just stopped from doing any further work at some point? I was aware of that. And was this before they produced a result? No. We received a preliminary report. I recall receiving that because that's how I know I can approve payment of the invoice. So I know we received that prior to them being told they were stopped. Interesting. Were you part of the decision to stop them? I was not. How did you find out about it? I found out about it in an email from my laboratory system director. Do you remember when that happened? I don't recall. Does the forensics lab continue to contract with Othram? Yes. If Othram had a file that would have had validation studies and bench notes, anything they did on the case, who would have received that? Again, validation studies would be odd to associate with the individual cases, so I wouldn't assume that they would do that. Again, I'm not familiar with their procedures. And as far as who would receive documents, usually it would be, I would assume, the agency which we received that preliminary report. You mentioned you're not familiar with their procedures. Not in detail, no. What procedures are you familiar with? For yes. As part of the bid process, all of the bidders were required to submit. I believe they were required to submit their procedures, and it was essentially just looking over them to say, yeah, they have a procedure in place for extracting DNA. Yes, they have a procedure in place for doing SMPs. So yes, they meet the minimums for the invitation to bid. But again, I'm not qualified in that technology, so I wouldn't have studied them or rendered an opinion on them. I won't ask your opinion on them. I won't ask you to quote them to me. But you saw those? Yes, at the very beginning of the bid process. Let's switch gears. In the case we are here for today, do you recall there being a trash pull? The court reporter, I'm sorry, there being a what? Ms. Taylor, a trash pull. The witness, I recall receiving evidence from a trash pull, correct? What role did you have in deciding anything about the trash pull? Nothing about the trash pull occurring. I do recall there being brief. I can't remember if it was a phone meeting or a video meeting, and just being asked in general what items from someone's trash are good for NASA. This is our DLO. Remember when we read through sidebar, let me come back to chat. Hi, everyone. Remember when we were reading through that IGG policy? And I was talking about how, wouldn't they have still needed to get a warrant for the trash pull? Because the trash that they're taking is Daddy Koberger's trash. And if you want to take a third-party sample as a reference sample to compare to your suspect sample, you would still need a warrant per IGG policy, right? And I was saying, so they would have had to contact someone to find out exactly which pieces of trash are going to be good for you. What would you suggest we take from the trash that's going to work for you at the lab? She's confirming here. She had nothing directly to do with the trash pull occurring, but she does recall it was either a phone meeting or a video meeting, and she was being asked in general what items from the trash are good for DNA. See this shit? Everybody seeing this? Sorry, guys. When I'm in another window reading, I am not in chat at all. So, hope you're having fun. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. Happy Friday. All right. So, interesting. Yeah, they shipped the whole can. Right? Holy shit. So, here we go, you know? Look at that. They flew the trash they flew the trash truck there. That's hysterical. It's just wild, right? Just absolutely wild. All right. I had to take a break for a minute. Come back over to chat. Wow. Holy shit. Where are we at? Not bad. We're at page what? 53? Does that say? No, that can't say 53. I am blind, man. 59. Not bad. We're almost to page 60. Meg P, I hope you're. No, that's not what I said. I said, I hope you're enjoying yourselves. Happy Friday. Not annoying yourselves. Oh, y'all crack me up. I'm so happy I get to hang out with you guys on a Friday night. I'm glad I decided not to go to work. Not gonna lie. I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't go into work, huh? More pages to go. I know, right, Mark B? Holy shit, man. Quality Emerald. Thank you. I appreciate that. Trying to do a great job here. Hopefully everybody's appreciating me reading these docs, going through it with them. I think it's fun. I mean, I'd just be sitting here reading it myself anyway, but you know. I'm glad you guys are hanging out with me on a Friday night. Giggle. Drone trash pickup. Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, darling. I was saying I hope you're enjoying yourself. Oh, well, thanks. I'm kind of glad I'm home too, darling. Appreciate that. Ordering a hearing aid, Meg. Ay, ay, ay. Just don't get it off Temu. Big time appreciated. Well, thanks, Mark. I really appreciate that. Appreciate it, guys. Awesome. So happy to hear you're enjoying it. Beachy D. Well, thank you, darling. Appreciate that. Very, very much. I haven't seen Treetop in here. Where the heck has she been? Miss you, Treetop. Miss you, Mercy Cat. Hope you're in here. Maybe they're just listening. Maybe they're lurking and listening. Or they're working. All right. So, Janet, UK, thank you. Love you right back, darling. All right. Oh my God, that's so funny, Bitsy. Temu DNA profile. Ay, ay, ay. Temu is innocent. Damn right it is. I love Temu. I don't care what nobody says. Just don't get a hearing aid off there. Oh, you're welcome, Larisha. Anytime, darling. Happy you're here. You're welcome, James. All right. Let's see. Let's get back over to Miss Nolan's testimony here. All right. So, did you give advice? I don't know if it was me specifically or another member of our DNA unit, but we did offer suggestions on items that are good for DNA. Did you receive items to test? Yes. What instructions? Items. The discussion was a person of interest had been developed and to analyze the items from the trash to determine if they could be inclusive of the DNA profile that was developed from the knife sheath, unknown male A. Was that you received the trash? The trash received into the laboratory on December 28th, 2022. So you were looking for a male profile? Correct. All right. Did you find male profiles? Plural. I didn't perform the actual testing, but yes, there were male profiles developed. Do you know anything about either male profile or any of them? I believe one of the male profiles designated as E was determined they could be a biological parent or child of the profile from the knife sheath. And you are aware that Brian Koberger's DNA was in the trash. I was not aware. Did you become aware? I became aware later. We didn't have his name at the time. You didn't know his name on December 28th? I did not. Holy shit. What? Guys, is this real life? Is this real life? Come on. Maybe I've just been reading too many docs and my eyes are like going fuzzy or something. No, this is the one who said she didn't go there for the trash. I don't think she was at his house, Heather. How would she not be aware of Brian Koberger's name on December 28th when IGG identified him December 19th? What? Amples Park, it gets crazier? Oh, fuck. Okay. All right. Well, buckle up, friends. Keep all hands, feet inside the ride. Here we go. So, profiles. There were multiple profiles developed. Okay. Good to know. Yeah. Well, I know that, darling. She knew whose house they were at. Yes, I understand. She is the state. They are all one unit. Yes, I know, darling. It's very interesting, though, that Payne just got up there. This bitch is in the room when Payne is testifying. She heard Payne say, become aware of him until December 19th when IGG was done. So it wouldn't have been hard for her to just be like, yeah, we knew. I knew about him because IGG gave us his name on the 19th. Yeah. Know what I mean? I don't know why. 9 days later. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whoopsie. Kind of wild, huh? Interesting. Holy shit. All right. It's going to get more wild, apparently. Here we go. So you didn't know his name on December 28th? No, I did not. Okay. Were you on December 28th? Were you aware that not another male profile had been identified? From the trash pull. I knew there were some mixtures of DNA that were also included. These fucking idiots. It was Christmas. December 25th. Oh my God, it just hit me. December 25th, they put cameras on the property. December 27th is trash pull. How many Koberger family members, cousins, etc., came over to visit for the holidays? Mixtures of DNA in the trash. Other unknown males of DNA in the trash. Holy shit. One of the mixtures, did it have a male DNA profile? I believe. And wasn't that profile the major component of that profile with a minor female? I believe that sounds correct. And later, didn't that return to Brian Koberger? We actually did not perform that comparison. Did you and I have a discussion a few days ago? We did. Did you tell me that you knew that to be Brian Koberger? I said I thought it was. Find the report where we had done that comparison. I've since looked through and we did not make that comparison, so I cannot say he was included in that mixture. Our laboratory did not do that comparison, but a DNA profile was made for that mixture. Is that right? Yes. And there's a minor female and a major male. Jesus Christ, when she said minor female, I thought minor like minor underage. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Where is this going? I have to stop for a second. Holy shit. Sorry, guys. That's it. I quit. Right, darling? Holy shit. Oh my God, Heather. We have the same brain. That's why I had to stop for a minute. Because at first when it said minor female, I was like, "Excuse me? There is a mixed sample with a male and a minor female. I don't understand what's happening." Okay, but now it's yeah, double speak. Okay. Minor female, major male. Got it. Yeah, major, minor. Got it. Yeah, exactly, translucent. Heather, take me with you. I know I'm gonna fire up my room, darling, and come with you. I want to literally spontaneously combust into 1,000 bats and fly off into the moon. You know, that's all I want to do. All right. I just had to take a break for a second. I really did. That just gave me a little mind bend for a second there. And I was like, where is this going? Where is this headed? Do I want to continue reading? All right. Big sheath, little sheath. Yes. Right. Minor contributor. Gotcha, darling. Yes, Heather Mosher. Thank you. I appreciate you. It took me a second. It took a second for my brain to get there. And I was like, excuse me, what is the language happening here? Whew. All right. Holy shit. My goodness gracious. Okay. Now that my brain has collected itself, and I'm going to take a sip of my drink here. We still got 200 people watching almost on a Friday night. Thank you to every single one of you. You're awesome. You're the real MVPs. Don't let anybody tell you different. All right. So there's a minor female and a major male understanding. And you could by eye and tell that's Brian Koberger, couldn't you? If you wanted to. If I wanted to, I could probably look. I did not. Okay. You could still do it today if you wanted to. If there's a request to do the comparison again, do it, Ann. We don't do a visual comparison evidence to evidence. Our procedures don't allow us to do that for probative comparisons. I need you to help me understand that a little bit. I'm having that question because I understand there was an unknown mail item 30. Do you know what I'm talking about? No. Okay. Well, I also understand that there was a cigarette butt taken from somebody in connection with the case investigation. Are you familiar with that? I am familiar with that. And that was compared to the DNA on the knife sheath. Is that right? Yes. And that was found to be excludable. Am I using the word right? It was an exclusion, correct. So you compared something that was to an item of evidence. Is that right? Something that was a secondary reference, as in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item, they saw that person dispose of that item, was collected and used as a reference sample from that person because there was someone who said that it was from that person. Okay. When you go to the trash, when you got the trash to go through in the lab, you knew that you were looking for a male, right? Correct. And you knew that the male and his family members lived in a house that produced a bag of trash. Is that right? Yes, but not who produced each individual item in that trash pull. Okay. It wasn't labeled. This water bottle is from a person of interest, from a sibling. This Q-tip is from a parent. We didn't information. It was just, here's some items from a trash pull. And one of those items you took and developed male E? I did not, but yes, the lab did. In general, the lab developed male E? Correct. And compared male A and male E? There was a paternity statistic calculated because they were both single source profiles, meaning only from one individual. Okay, there's another male profile. That was part of a mixture, to my knowledge, meaning more than one person's DNA present on that item. Again, only one male, though. Is that right? So when there's a mixture on an item of evidence, I don't know if you want me to explain the process. The first step is determining number of contributors to the mixture. Then our laboratory utilizes a software program to help break out the components of that mixture. When one individual is male, it's not always possible to say the gender of the second person. Interesting. Males have an X and a Y chromosome. Females only have an X. So if there's an X and a Y present, it could be one male, it could be two males, it could be male and a female. Without comparing to known reference samples, I can't say that. And I haven't seen the profile to my knowledge. Okay. Did you tell me, though, on that sample, and I'm talking about 95.9.1, that was a male and a female? I believe that. I don't know if it was designated as that in the laboratory report. To my knowledge, it was. I can't remember what the report said. Again, I didn't generate the report and didn't do the work. I'm not as familiar with as if it was my own work. Okay. Male B was also a mixture, wasn't it? I don't know. Okay. It was designated as unknown male B. Again, I don't know if it was from a mixed sample or not. Oh, okay, that's her answer. If it was designated as unknown male B, again, I don't know if it was from a mixed sample or not. Miss Taylor, Your Honor, if I may have just a moment. Thank you for that. Just a couple of other questions for you. As it relates to male E, it was compared to the sheath. Is that right? Correct. A paternity comparison. Male E profile was compared to a lot of other evidence items in this case, wasn't it? Correct. And you are allowed to do a manual interpretation per your policy, right? If there is. So it's not black and white. So if it is a single source and we can look at it and say that person is excluded, they are not the source of the DNA, then yes, that can be done manual. And by manual, I mean a person looking at it. If it is a probative comparison, and how we define a probative comparison is if it's saying something about who could be the source of the DNA on an item of evidence that's relevant to the case, then no, we do not do a manual comparison and issue a statement about that because all of our standards. We would have to issue a statistic so that the trier of fact has something to gauge how unique that could be. What is the likelihood that the DNA could be from someone else? We provide that statistic. We don't just say it matches. That requires a statistical calculation, which we use a probabilistic genotyping software to do. I apologize. I think I got lost in there. Are you telling me because it was a mix, you couldn't have done a manual interpretation on 95.9.1? Because it's a mixed profile, and because if it was, you're saying it was Brian's DNA, Brian Koberger's DNA present, that would be a probative comparison in the case, which we have to provide a statistic in order to make that statement. In order to deconvolute a mixture, we are no longer allowed to do those manually. Deconvolute, as in separate a mixture into its components. We have a software. The software was not designated for, nor was it validated for, doing evidence-to-evidence comparisons. Now you're speaking my language. Validations are important for integrity, is that right? In forensics, our laboratory uses validations to ensure any tool is working properly. Now, at some point later, your lab issued a report saying, matching the DNA on the sheath with the DNA taken from Brian Koberger. Is that right? That's correct, and a statistic was provided. Now, I want to talk to you about when we say the sheath. You're familiar with what happened with the sheath for swabbing. Is that right? Oh, fuck. I've seen the sheath. And I know how our laboratories perform swabbing of evidence, but I did not swab that item of evidence, nor did I see it being swabbed. As I understand it, though, you've read the lab notes? At one point, I believe I did read the notes. I think I was asked a question, and the analyst was out of town or something. I think you answered that question to law enforcement after consulting somebody else who was with the swabber when the sheath was swabbed. Is that right? So she answered a question because the other analyst was out of town or something. Enforcement, after consulting with someone else who was the swabber of the sheath when the sheath. Oh my God. Okay. It sounds familiar. If I understand the lab report source on the knife sheath, is that right? Correct. Does that mean it's only in that area? Yes, that was detected through our testing. Tell me where you think that sheath was swabbed for purposes of DNA collection. I believe the analyst swabbed there's kind of a snap or a button that was the top of the snap, and that's the area that was swabbed. There were other areas on it as well. Interesting. Other areas. We've always asked that, right? Were there other areas tested on the sheath, or was it just the button? For the purposes of unknown male A, that you're telling us later came back to Brian Koberger, that's the only place I want to talk about right now. On the top of the button, the outside, or on the inside, the portion of the button. I know on the top. I don't recall if she swabbed the underside or not. I'd have to look at her notes again. Do you know if that sheath was part of it preserved for fingerprinting? The swabbing was done first. That's laboratory standard order of processing. If DNA is needed and fingerprints, they will work together. Essentially, fingerprints will say we can see some possible ridge detail. So if you can avoid this area, after DNA says we want to swab this, and then they come to a decision of what would best suit that item of evidence to determine where to swab. So the swabbing takes place first. I think I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you. The court, how long do you think you have? I'm just trying to gauge a break here. Mr. Nye, I'd say 10 minutes. The court, let's take 10 minutes and we'll be back. Recess. All right, so when we come back, it's a cross-examination of Mr. Nye of Riley Nolan. Holy shit, friends. Oh my goodness gracious. All right. Wow. Insane. Audrey, darling, this is like wild, right? Have you been here this whole time, honey? Or did you have to step out? It's a lot. It's a lot. Sheath to sheath, right? Sheath to sheath. The swabber. That's right, the swabber. Somebody changed their name to the swabber. Oh my God. Ay, ay, ay. This is absolutely insane, friends. Just wait until you hear what they actually swabbed on the sheath. Oh, well, don't be spoiling it all for me, Heather Mosher, darling. Don't spoil it for me. What are they called? Spoilers? I don't want any spoilers, friends. This is absolutely insane. Musical Contessa, thank you, darling. So happy to see you here. Appreciate you. We're 2.5 hours in. We got to page 70 of 175. This is wild. Absolutely wild. Crazy, right? Holy crap. You're not going to change your name to that, Twiz? The swabber. It's a lot. It's a lot. I know. It's a lot. Just like life. You're right, Angel, darling. Just like life. It's a lot. Yeah, don't be giving me no spoilers, please. No spoilers in the chat. Don't ruin it for us. Maybe some of us haven't read it. Know what I mean? Hi, yi, yi. Erwin, how are you? Thanks for being here. You're giving spoilers, though. Don't do that. All right. This is insane. Okay. Let's get over here and see where we get to this cross-examination. All right, Nye. Good morning. I have just a few questions for you today. So you talked a little bit about policies and procedures in the lab. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. And you talked about that there are policies and procedures related specifically to DNA. Is that correct? Correct. As part of these policies and procedures, does the lab need to have a legitimate reason to test DNA? Yes. We only test DNA related to criminal investigations or to death investigations, and it needs to be an item that will answer a probative question in a case. So, for example, if someone at the lab wanted to test DNA out of curiosity about medical information, that would not be consistent with that policy. Listen, I'm going to sidebar here for a minute. This is multiple times now that it's been mentioned. It's almost like at some point it was insinuated by the defense that they obtained Brian's medical information. And everybody seems to be like, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. We don't do that. Nope. Didn't happen. Not over here. Right? It seemed to be quite the big thing regarding his medical information. Did you look at his medical information? Even if you're curious about the medical information, right? Anybody else getting that vibe out of these docs lately? What's the deal with his medical information other than, yeah, it would violate HIPAA? I get it. But I don't think that's their main concern here, if you want my honest opinion. There's something, it's almost like I don't know, maybe we'll find out as we go through this, but it's almost like the defense is trying to get at his biomedical information is actually what was used to produce a profile. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does anybody else get that vibe? That it was actually his medical information? I don't know. It's just weird. I'm just getting a weird vibe about the whole medical information. They seem to be very, 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 very concerned and almost insinuating that it was his medical information in some way that was used. And I'm not, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. It's the vibe I'm getting. Right? I'm not the only one, right? It's in the S&P. I don't know how someone can remove it, but if that happens, someone saw the medical information. Right. Yeah. Gotcha. Well, see, that's what I figured, Audrey. But they're all steering very clear of it, like, nope. Did not happen. So I don't know. I don't think it's psychological. I really don't. I don't think it's that. Well, I know they'd need a warrant for medical, darling. I get that. It just seems, it's just the way that Anne has been kind of like insinuating things here and there. And then the way that certain questions are asked and things are alluded to. I just get the vibe, something about his medical information they played fiddly fuck with is what's being insinuated. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. You know what I mean? I could be absolutely wrong. It would not be the first time. All right. Yeah, exactly. They're trying to say, right, we didn't look at it, but that way we didn't violate his rights. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that, but D Smalls. Sorry, chat's flying. I was trying to highlight that. WSU had access to his health reports because he worked there. Maybe like how we fill out those for kids' schools. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Right. Jackie Swabber. Oh my God. All right, darlings. Let me get back over here. Maybe we'll get to about page 100 and then I'm going to shut it down. I don't think I'm going to make it another 20 fucking 30 pages though. Not going to lie to you. All right. We don't do curiosity testing, and none of our testing would provide medical information. You also testified that you were involved in, or maybe primarily responsible for developing the scope of work request for Othram. Is that correct? I was part of that, yes. Work request. That just goes with, and this was my first one I've done, so I don't have vast experience in this process, but when we're going to contract with a vendor, just going through and outlining what we expect them to do as part of that. And what do you recall about the request specifically? What were you requesting Othram to do? Specifically, we were requesting them, if necessary, to perform DNA extraction, pulling the DNA out of the cells on an item of evidence. If necessary, our laboratory typically did that. We were requesting them to generate an SMP profile using SMP array or whole genome sequencing. We were requesting them to then upload that to all public databases that allow law enforcement samples. We were requesting them to generate a report. We were requesting them to notify us a portion of the work, generation of the profile within 60 days, I believe. I believe there was also information in there about not publicly giving our case information to the public without our express permission, things of that nature. Was there anything in the scope of work request related to the medical information? There it is again. So you weren't asking Othram to determine if his DNA, the person whose DNA this was, had, for example, cancer. There it is. No. Interesting. So you weren't asking Othram to determine if this DNA, person whose DNA this was, had, for example, cancer. No. Now, in your position and in this case, you testified that you didn't actually do any of the testing, but you've read a lot of the reports that were involved. Is that correct? I've seen a lot of the reports, correct? And of all the reports you've read, have you seen that kind of information? No. The testing our laboratory does not generate any medical information. Also talked about in the scope of work, Othram was required to provide you with at least one report, correct? And did you have a chance to review that? I have seen the report, yes. Did it contain medical information? No, it did not. Now, you also talked a little bit with Miss Taylor about an MOU. Do you remember that discussion? Yes. I just want to be clear. Who were the parties to that MOU? The parts to that MOU specific to this case were the Moscow Police Department, County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and the Idaho State Police Forensic Services. So Othram was not a party to that MOU. Correct. And the FBI was not a party to that MOU. Correct. And any other part of your testimony that you spoke with Miss Taylor about the trash pull, do you recall that testimony? Yes. And that one of the samples that was pulled from the trash, that was a mixed sample, your lab did not compare that. Is that correct? Correct. And can you explain why you did not compare that? So initially, we did not compare that because it was a mixed profile. We did not know the source of that profile, so it could not be considered a secondary reference, so we deemed that to be an evidentiary sample. And we can't make a manual comparison of evidence to evidence, especially when there's a mixture. And if the analyst, again, I was not the analyst, if the analyst did the comparison and determined that unknown male A could have been in that mixture, it would have been inappropriate to compare those two samples together per our analytical methods. And so the decision not to compare that, who made that decision? That would have been made by the analyst in this case. So you weren't, to your knowledge, no one at the lab was advised, for example, by the lead investigator in this case, which of those items to test. No. You also gave some testimony about the knife sheath and the swabs on that. Yes. And I know you don't recall exactly where the knife sheath was swabbed, but we've been talking about policies. Do your policies or best practices suggest where a knife sheath or an item like that would be swabbed for DNA? No. It would be impossible for our analytical methods to cover how to swab or where to swab every single item of evidence. We receive quite a wide variety of items into the laboratory. So it's the analyst's job as a scientist, as a practitioner in forensic biology screening and DNA analysis to know what they're targeting. So on this item, I believe there was also blood. So they would have been targeting that separate and then also trying to determine who may have handled that. So they would have specifically honed in on an area that whoever handled it would have had to have touched repeatedly. And why do they hone in on those areas in particular? Because that's the question we are trying to answer. In forensic DNA analysis, the questions we're trying to answer is, can we link assailant to victim, victim to assailant, or one or both to the scene? So in this instance, my understanding, the sheath was found at the scene. So trying to link the possible perpetrator to the scene. And why in particular do you hone in on the areas where this person may have handled the knife sheath? Because DNA is found in the cells in our body, and that includes the skin cells that are sloughed off on our hands when items are handled. So we're looking for any touch DNA that is most often used, or from someone touching or handling an item. So if I'm understanding correctly, the analyst is swabbing the places that would most likely have that touch DNA. Correct. No further questions. The court, redirect Ms. Taylor. Thank you. Your Honor, I would like to start by sharing a computer screen that I have approved with the prosecutor for refreshing her memory. I love it when Ann Taylor refreshes someone's memory. It's my favorite thing. Anybody else? Leave a 1 in the chat if you love it when Ann Taylor refreshes people's fucking memories. Because nobody remembers shit in this case, including your lead analyst, your lead detectives, your lead investigators. Nobody remembers shit. They're all just like me. They don't know shit. It's insane. Okay, leave a 1 in the chat if you love it when Ann Taylor refreshes someone's memory. Okay. I love it. And she's bringing up a damn computer. I'm sharing the entire computer screen that I've approved with the prosecutor for refreshing her memory. Let's go. All right, all ones. Hell yeah. Ones, 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 ones. Mercy cat. Mercy cat. Happy Friday, baby girl. All right. Can't even believe this shit. 1 octillion. Yes. Too fast for fleas. 1 octillion. Oh, you guys are awesome. Freaking love this chat. I really do. Just want to say that. You guys are awesome. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you know that. I know you love it, Twiz. I know you love you some Ann Taylor. Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor. What is the 1 for? The 1 is for if you love it when Ann Taylor refreshes someone's memory. Exactly. Yes, Eddie. When she's refreshing their memory, it's akin to her scolding them, like a mother scolding their child for lying. Let me refresh your memory, oh sweet child of mine, who wants to lie to my face. Let me show you my computer screen here where it shows me you're lying. Oh boy. Okay, let's get back into it. We got all ones in the chat. It's a beautiful thing. All right. Let's go. Your Honor, I would like to start by sharing a computer screen that I've proved with the process of refreshing her memory. It's just for refreshing. It's not an exhibit. Hitler's like, don't be trying to fucking sneak something in, Anne. Miss Taylor, yeah, it is. May I approach? Go ahead. Have we established she doesn't remember, or are we just going to stipulate to it? Your Honor, I can ask the question. The court, we can save time if you're going to stipulate to it. Mr. Nye, yeah, that's totally fine, Your Honor. The court, let's do that. Are you going to share the screen with the court or just her? It's just to refresh her memory, Your Honor. Okay, gotcha. Holy shit. All right. Here's the redirect from Anne. We were talking at the end of my questions, and where Mr. Nye just left off with you would have been swabbed. Reading the email that's been placed in front of you, does that refresh your recollection about what you believed to be the place the sheath was swabbed? Very much so. Where was it swabbed? The knife was swabbed. The entire, did you say the knife was swabbed? That's what Hitler says. Literally had to stop herself. Where was it swabbed? The knife was swabbed. The entire, the court. Did you just say the knife was swabbed? Sorry, the knife sheath. Am I allowed to reread it? That's the witness. She's reading her own email, and the email says the knife was swabbed. Am I allowed to read it? You're supposed to read it and then let it refresh your recollection, and then not read it, but just tell me a summary of where it was. The entire leather portion of the strap, both top and bottom, and then the underside of the button. I misspoke. She did not swab the top of the button because that was determined to be the most likely place for fingerprints to be found. The underside of the button, was it the part the sticky out part would go into, or the sticky out part, or both? I can't tell from this. I would have to look at her notes. Okay, good enough. Thank you. Couple of follow-up questions for you. You answered a lot of questions for Mr. Nye about medical information and that your lab does not do testing for medical information. Is that because you do STR or YSTR testing, not SMP? Correct. Our laboratory performs both STR and YSTRs, and those don't yield medical information. Here we go. YSTRs. YSTRs have to do with that differential DNA extraction, if I remember correctly. That's what they do with the differential DNA extractions, don't they, Audrey, darling? Yes? Are you still here? I feel like I remember reading that. That's interesting, though, huh? She's reading her own email back, looking at the computer, and it says the knife, and then she has to correct herself. That's interesting. Right. Oh, we know that, darling. Yeah. The knife. Yep. Even Hitler says to her, did you just say the knife? Holy shit. This is good stuff, guys. I'm glad I decided to read this tonight. Wow. Why STRs? Why? I feel like I just read about why STRs when I was reading through. Yes, Audrey says. Thank you, darling. Appreciate you. I know you know what I'm talking about. The why STRs have to do with the semen, the differential DNA extraction for semen collected at the scene. The MOU that you reviewed and remembered, the Department of Justice interim policy, applied to the circumstance in this case. Do you know who else the interim policy applies to? Based on what is stated in the interim policy, it applies to public laboratories like ours that receive federal funding in cases where federal funding is being used. In Mr. Koberger's case, there was federal funding being used. To my knowledge, I don't know if we did use federal funding in this case. Do you recall talking to me a couple days ago? Yes. And do you recall telling me that you did? I do recall telling you that we had a grant in place, but again, I authorized payment of the invoice, but which fund the funds came out of, I don't know, and I apologize if I misspoke. And you are aware that the FBI FIGG unit, I guess, took over, and the FBI finished the genetic genealogy after Othram was stopped. I'm aware we were authorized to turn it over, but as to what happened after that, I don't know. Okay, one more question for you. You talked to Mr. Nye a bit about not comparing the sample, 95.9.1, to the sheath DNA. And I had asked you a little bit about your policy that allowed you to do the hand search, the manual search on that. Your policy does allow you to do a comparison, like it's either excluded or not excluded, though. Is that right? And I'm looking at policy 456. No, we can report an exclusion, same source. But in order to say they are from the same source, considering they're from completely different areas, no, we would have to provide a statistic, and we can't do that. But you could have looked at it and said it's not excluded. That would be an indication that it's possible, and we would have to provide a statistic for that. And we have. So our biology section, you may be looking at our analytical methods. Biology section has their own quality manual that further discusses this. Your Honor, if I can have her shown this document to see if we can refresh her memory. For the record, identify what I'm showing her. What I'm showing her are a couple of pages out of the biology manual for the Idaho State Police Forensics Lab that is available online. So, Ms. Nolan, if you'll look at the very bottom one, that's the one I'm having trouble squaring with your testimony. If that refreshes your recollection or helps me understand. So what this is talking about is to make a qualitative statement about evidence to evidence comparisons. Another section of our biology quality manual that specifically states if it's a probative comparison, a statistic must be provided. What this is saying, so for instance, if you're in one room in a scene and there's multiple swabs that are tested, we can say these are consistent or these appear to be from the same unknown individual. Now, if I'm going to say these are from John Doe, I have to provide a statistic for each item and do a comparison of each item. Did I hear you say you could compare if they're probative? If it's, which that wouldn't be, in my mind, a probative comparison. We have multiple items of evidence in the same room in a scene. We can say they appear to be consistent with the same unknown individual. That's not making any statement about who that individual might be. If I'm making a statement about who might be the source of that, then that is a probative comparison, and I need to provide a statistic. Before comparison, where maybe you write exclusion, you don't know if it's excluded or included, though. Is that right? I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Yeah. Let me try to explain what I'm getting at. I'm not understanding why 95.9.1 couldn't have been manually looked at to do a manual comparison to the sheath DNA just to say excluded or not. when male E was compared multiple items of evidence and it was excluded. But you don't know that until you do the comparison. Is that right? Correct. So you can look at it manually. But if we're now making a probative statement, then we need to provide a statistic. And male E was also a single, which is different than a mixture of DNA from multiple people. All right. I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you. Maybe I can take these pages back from you. The court. Thank you. You can call your next witness. Miss Taylor. Matthew Gamet. Holy shit. Okay. Here we go. I got to take a break. Matthew Gamet is the next one up. Come on down, Matthew Gamet. You are the next contestant. Ay, 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 ay. What do you guys think? Blood on the sheath. So ISP didn't locate just a single source of male DNA. There was also blood as well. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. What do you guys think so far? Holy guacamole. So they swabbed that sheath up and down, baby. One side, up one side, and down the other. And there was blood on it. Male E. Insane. Right? Absolutely insane. Holy shit. Yeah, you would think, Audrey, right? I don't know, Eddie. I think, no, it's male E, if I remember correctly. Brian's male A, right, Fitzy? And male E was the sheath. Honestly, don't take anything I say. Don't listen to anything I say. Need some Z's. You dozed off. Did they test the blood too? No. I don't think so. Must not have been blood where they swabbed. Blood inhibits trace DNA, so there must not have been blood where they swabbed. I don't know. I don't know. Not sure. Absolutely wild, though, huh? When you read through some of this stuff, holy shit. I love that it's now written in a doc, right? Is that right? Means male number 5. Oh, gotcha, Fitzy. Okay, gotcha, darling. Gotcha. All right. Number 5. So 4 others besides Brian. E is number 5. Yeah. Holy shit. Ay, I don't know. I don't know if it was victim's blood. I don't think it was. I don't think it's victim's blood. Because the way that this person, Rylene here, was talking about everything being tested from the sheath, sounds like the blood wasn't victim's blood. That's why they were testing it. It's a male, I think. I think it's male blood. I don't know. Don't quote me, darling. Don't quote me. It's a lot. My brain is still trying to process the other over 100 pages of docs that I've read in the last 2 days in lives, along with this. So, in total, we're talking in the last, 2 days, I want to say. We're going on, 8 hours, and then a couple hours, and then a couple hours here. So, we're talking like 14 fucking hours of reading docs the last couple days. So it's a lot, and my brain needs to process it. You know what I mean? She said they can't submit the victims. Oh, that's right. Thank you, Meanie. You're right. Thank you. It can't belong to a victim. That's right. A is planted. BK and B is railing. No, I think A is the sheath profile, correct? I don't know. You know what? It's too much for my brain. I don't think it is, Eddie, because, we just read somewhere up here in her testimony that it can't be a victim. The sample can't belong to a victim for them to test it. Yeah, A is Brian. That's what I thought. A is Brian. So unfortunately, Eddie, I don't think it's victim's blood, sadly. I think that it's likely a perpetrator and it's likely male. So that's just my opinion. Yeah, they need to test to know if it's a victim or not. I don't know. I'm telling you, go back and read through this. Go back and read through Riley Nolan's testimony here in the about samples that they're allowed to test, what they do and stuff like that. And she gave specific criteria, and it can't belong to a victim. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Amples Park. I have no idea. I don't know if they even tested the blood. I don't even know what they did with the blood that was on the sheet that just said there was blood. Also, this Riley Nolan is aware that there was also blood found on the sheath. So we have blood on the sheath, blood on the handrail from the first floor going up to the second. Right? And I feel like there was one other blood talked about too. Oh, yeah, blood on the gloves outside. Gloves, plural, right? Elizabeth, good night, darling. Hope you have a great Friday night. Sleep well. So, yeah, they wouldn't designate the victims, right, as unknown A through E. Yeah, exactly. Keep reading, it will tell me. Well, I mean, my eyes are getting a little tired, not going to lie to you. I'm sure as we get into Matthew Gamet and the other person, not going to lie to you guys, 3 hours. So let's see, 8, 10, 11 hours total. My eyes are going to bleed out. I've put in, a couple days now, almost 12 hours of reading docs, and my eyes are going to bleed out of my face. And that's not even including the reading that I do of these docs before I even hop on a live, okay? We're talking hours. Hours I go through these things. So I just know that what we've learned is we have a lot of damn DNA at this scene. Many forms of it, hair, potentially semen, if they're doing these differential DNA extractions, blood all over the fucking place belonging to multiple people that are not your victims and that are not Brian. So that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Semen, hair, blood. None of it belonging to Koberger. So that's interesting. Hi, ay, 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 ay. Well, I say we pick this back up tomorrow. We could definitely crank out the rest of this tomorrow. We're halfway through. What do you think? Go relax and enjoy the rest of your Friday night. You know what I mean? Yeah, Elizabeth, I am going to get some rest. You're damn right I am. I got a lot of work that I'm putting in this weekend with my other job. And yeah, so it's fine. We can get to the rest of it tomorrow. We're going to leave off here, starting off with Gamut. That's where we'll start off tomorrow. Yeah? Sound like a plan? Maybe like Saturday afternoon coffee with Annie, and we'll read the rest of this. I think that. So anyways, yes. Oh, you're very welcome, Janet. Well, in you again. I agree with you on that. Probably the only thing I've agreed with you on. But I agree. He probably did. Thank you, Janet, for being here. I really appreciate you. Thank you to everybody for hanging out. I know it's a lot reading through the docs. And yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. You could be anywhere out here. So thank you so very much. Means a lot. And if you sent a little something to the Cash App, that also means a lot. I'll be making sure that I get a lot of coffee for tomorrow. Sound like a plan? Get plenty of caffeine into me. All right. I hope you guys have such an awesome night. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Catch you tomorrow. Keep your eye out. Click the notification. That way you get notified next time I go live. And we'll catch up tomorrow. Nighty night, friends. You take care. Bye.